The text message was supposed to save her life. Instead, it destroyed everything she thought she knew about safety. One wrong digit, one stranger's phone. 8 minutes later, Kaelyn Mercer walked out of that restaurant holding the hand of the most dangerous man in Chicago, and she had no idea the price she'd just agreed to pay. They call him Lucien Moretti, businessman, kingpin, ghost, the kind of man who makes problems disappear without ever raising his voice. And now he's decided she belongs to him. This is the story of how a single mistake became the most dangerous love affair in the city. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Rain doesn't fall in Chicago. It attacks. It comes at you sideways, sharp enough to sting exposed skin, cold enough to seep through expensive coats and remind you that nothing here is ever really warm. Kaelyn Mercer stood under the awning of Santino's, one of those upscale Italian places where the bread costs more than most people's lunch, and watched the storm turn Michigan Avenue into a river of brake lights and misery. Her phone buzzed. Again. She didn't look at it. She knew who it was. Nolan had been texting for the last 40 minutes. Little messages. Harmless on the surface. Hey, you okay? You've been gone a while, just checking in. But beneath the words was something else. Something that made her stomach twist. She'd met him 3 weeks ago at a gallery opening in River North. He was clean-cut, charming, the kind of guy who remembered to ask follow-up questions and laughed at the right moments. He worked in finance, donated to charity, wore watches that cost more than her rent. On paper, Nolan Pierce was perfect. In person, he was suffocating. The first date had been fine. Coffee, conversation, nothing heavy. But by the second date, his texts started coming faster, more frequent. Questions about where she was, who she was with, casual comments that didn't feel casual at all. And tonight, their third date, he'd touched her wrist under the table when she tried to stand up, his grip firm enough to stop her mid-motion, his smile never breaking even as his fingers dug into her skin. "Where are you going?" he'd asked. Soft voice, hard eyes. "Restroom," she'd said, pulling her hand free with more effort than it should have taken. "Don't be long." That's when she knew. She'd locked herself in the single-stall bathroom, hands shaking as she pulled out her phone and started typing a message to her best friend Simone. SOS. Date went bad. Need extraction. Santino's on Michigan. Please come get me. But her hands were shaking too hard. The autocorrect betrayed her. And when she hit send, she didn't notice the number was wrong by a single digit. The reply came 30 seconds later. Address? Relief flooded through her. She typed fast. Santino's. 150 North Michigan, table near the back. Guy in a gray suit won't let me leave. Another pause, then, stay in the restroom. I'm 8 minutes out. Kaelyn leaned against the sink, exhaling hard. Simone was coming. She just had to wait. Just had to stay hidden until... Her phone buzzed again. What's his name? She frowned. That was weird. Simone knew she was on a date tonight. She told her all about Nolan yesterday. But maybe Simone wanted details for safety reasons. Made sense. Nolan Pierce, works at Garrison Financial. The reply was instant. Stay where you are. Something about the tone felt different, clipped, cold. But Kaelyn was too rattled to think about it. She splashed water on her face, checked her reflection, and tried to breathe normally. 8 minutes. She could do 8 minutes. 7 minutes later, the restaurant went quiet. Not quiet like people stopped talking. Quiet like the air itself got sucked out of the room. Kaelyn felt it even through the bathroom door. The sudden weight of silence pressing down on the space outside. Conversations cut off mid-sentence. Silverware stopped clinking. Even the background music seemed to dim. Then she heard footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. The kind of footsteps that didn't belong to someone in a hurry. The kind that owned the ground beneath them. Kaelyn cracked the bathroom door open just enough to see. The man who walked into Santino's looked like he'd been carved out of expensive nightmares and cold authority. Tall, easily 6'3", with dark hair swept back in a way that suggested he didn't care about trends because trends bent toward him. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, the kind of thing that cost more than most people's cars. But it wasn't the suit that made the room go silent. It was the way he moved, like violence wrapped in civility. Like a knife hidden in silk. Every head turned, Every conversation died. The hostess actually stepped back as he approached, her practiced smile faltering into something closer to survival instinct. He said something to her, too quiet for Kaelyn to hear, and the hostess pointed toward the back of the restaurant without a word, toward Nolan's table. Kaelyn's heart kicked into overdrive. She didn't know who this man was, but every instinct in her body screamed that he was dangerous. Not dangerous like Nolan, not the creeping, hidden kind. Dangerous like a loaded gun sitting on a table. Obvious, undeniable, inevitable. She watched as he walked past tables full of frozen patrons, his presence turning the entire restaurant into a held breath. When he reached Nolan's table, he stopped. Nolan looked up, annoyed at first, then confused. "Can I help you?" The man in the black suit didn't sit, didn't smile, just stood there, looking down at Nolan like he was something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. "You're sitting in the wrong seat," the man said. His voice was quiet, controlled. The kind of quiet that made you listen harder because missing a word might cost you something. Nolan blinked. "Excuse me?" "The woman you came with," the man continued, his tone never shifting. "Where is she?" "That's none of your—" "Answer the question." The air pressure in the room dropped. Kaelyn felt it from 15 feet away. Nolan felt it too. She watched the color drain from his face as he realized he'd made a mistake. A bad one. "She's in the restroom," Nolan said, trying to sound annoyed instead of scared, failing. "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but I know exactly who I am." The man leaned down just slightly, his voice dropping even lower. "The question is whether you're smart enough to know who you're talking to." Nolan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. The man straightened. "When she comes back, you're going to smile, apologize for wasting her evening, and leave. Alone. You're going to delete her number, forget her name, and you're never going to think about her again. Are we clear?" Nolan's jaw tightened. "You can't just—" "I'm not asking." The silence that followed was suffocating. Kaelyn watched Nolan's face cycle through emotions. Anger, indignation, fear, resignation, before finally landing on something that looked like self-preservation. "Fine," Nolan muttered. "Jesus Christ, fine." The man in the black suit didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there until Nolan pushed back from the table, threw cash down, and walked toward the exit without looking back. Only then did the man turn and look directly at the bathroom door, at Kaelyn. Her breath stopped. He couldn't possibly know she was watching. The door was barely cracked. The angle was wrong, but somehow his eyes found hers through the gap, and the world tilted sideways. She should have been terrified. She should have slammed the door and locked it and called the police. But something about the way he looked at her wasn't predatory. It was something else. Something she didn't have a word for. He walked toward the bathroom, slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Kaelyn's hand tightened on the door handle. Her brain screamed at her to move, to run, to do something, but her body wouldn't cooperate. She just stood there, frozen, as he stopped 3 feet from the door. "Kaelyn Mercer," he said quietly. Not a question, a confirmation. Her throat was dust. "How do you know my name?" "You texted me." The words didn't make sense at first. Then they did. Then they made too much sense. "You're not Simone." "No." "Then who—" "Lucien Moretti." The name landed like a punch. Kaelyn didn't follow crime news, didn't watch true crime documentaries. But even she knew that name. Everyone in Chicago knew that name, even if they pretended not to. Lucien Moretti, the ghost in the machine, the man politicians wouldn't name in public. The kind of person you didn't talk about unless you wanted to end up part of a very quiet conversation. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You asked for help," Lucien said, his voice still calm, still controlled. "I'm here." I meant to text my friend. I didn't mean—" "I know." "Then why did you come?" For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not a smile, not warmth, just the faintest acknowledgement that he'd heard the question and decided she deserved an answer. "Because you needed help," he said simply. "And I don't ignore messages like that." Kaelyn's mind was racing. This didn't make sense. People like Lucien Moretti didn't show up for wrong number texts, didn't walk into restaurants to scare off bad dates. They had people for that, layers of insulation. They didn't get their hands dirty unless— You thought I was in real danger, she said slowly. You were. Nolan's just— A man who doesn't understand the word no, Lucien interrupted. The kind who escalates. The kind who waits in parking lots and shows up at your apartment unannounced. I've seen 100 versions of him. They all end the same way. Kaelyn's stomach turned. Because he was right. She'd felt it in the restaurant. The way Nolan's grip had tightened. The way his smile hadn't reached his eyes. The way he'd said, "Don't be long," like it was a warning instead of a request. What did you say to him? She asked. I gave him a choice. And if he doesn't take it? Lucien's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. Something cold and absolute. Then he doesn't get another one. Kaelyn's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might crack a rib. She should have been running, should have been calling the police, should have been doing anything except standing here talking to a man whose name was synonymous with organized crime. But instead she asked the only question that mattered. Why did you really come? Lucien was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Because the message you sent wasn't just scared, it was desperate, and I don't walk away from that. You don't even know me. No, but I know what happens when no one shows up. There was something in his voice when he said it, something old and buried and carefully locked away. Kaelyn didn't know what it meant, but she felt it, the weight of it. I should go, she said, even though she didn't move. Yes, Lucien agreed, but not alone. I can call an Uber. You can, or I can make sure you get home safely. Why would you do that? Because Nolan Pierce doesn't strike me as the kind of man who gives up easily, and I'd prefer not to read about you in the news tomorrow. Kaelyn wanted to argue, wanted to insist she'd be fine, but the truth was she was terrified. Terrified of walking out of this restaurant alone, terrified of what Nolan might do, terrified of the man standing in front of her. If I say yes, she said slowly, what does that mean? Lucien's expression softened, just barely, just enough to be human. It means you get home safe. Nothing more, nothing less. She studied his face, looking for the lie, looking for the angle. But all she saw was patience, like he'd wait all night for her to decide, like her answer actually mattered. Okay, she whispered. Lucien stepped back, giving her space. I'm parked out front. Kaelyn grabbed her purse, her hand still shaking, and stepped out of the bathroom. The restaurant was still silent. Every eye tracked them as they walked toward the exit. The hostess looked like she wanted to say something but thought better of it. The bartender pretended to polish a glass. Even the kitchen staff had gone quiet. By the time they reached the door, Kaelyn realized something terrifying. Everyone in this restaurant knew who Lucien Moretti was, and now they all knew he'd left with her. The rain hit her face like a slap as they stepped outside. A black SUV idled at the curb, sleek and armored and completely illegal for civilian use. The driver, a man built like a wall, got out and opened the back door without a word. Lucien gestured for her to get in. Kaelyn hesitated. This was it. The moment. Once she got in that car, there was no going back. No pretending this was normal. No pretending she hadn't just stepped into something way over her head. Last chance, Lucien said quietly. You can walk away. I won't stop you. She should have walked, should have run. Instead, she got in the car. Lucien slid in beside her, and the door closed with a heavy, final thunk. The driver pulled away from the curb, smooth and practiced, and Kaelyn watched Santino's disappear behind sheets of rain. Where do you live? Lucien asked. She gave him her address in Lincoln Park. He relayed it to the driver in a tone that suggested this wasn't the first time he'd done this. They drove in silence for 3 blocks. Kaelyn's mind was screaming at her to say something, to fill the space, to make this less terrifying. But every time she opened her mouth, the words died before they formed. Finally, Lucien spoke. You're scared of me. It wasn't a question. Yes, Kaelyn admitted. There was no point lying. Good. You should be. She turned to look at him. That's supposed to make me feel better? No, but it's honest. Kaelyn didn't know what to say to that. They passed under a streetlight, and for a moment she saw his face clearly. Sharp features, dark eyes, a jawline that looked like it had been designed to intimidate. But beneath all that, she saw something else. Something tired. like he'd been carrying weight for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "You can ask. I might not answer. When you got my text, why didn't you just ignore it?" Lucien was quiet for a long time, long enough that she thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he said, "Because 5 years ago, someone I cared about sent a message like that. And I was 2 hours away. By the time I got there," he stopped, exhaled. "I was too late." Kaelyn's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Just be glad I answered." They pulled up outside her building, a modest brownstone tucked between taller structures. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. Kaelyn reached for the door handle, then stopped. "Thank you," she said. "For tonight. For showing up." Lucien nodded once. "Lock your doors. Don't answer calls from numbers you don't recognize. If Nolan contacts you again, tell me immediately." "How would I?" He handed her a card. Black. No logo. Just a phone number embossed in silver. "That number reaches me. Directly. Not an assistant. Not a secretary. Me." Kaelyn took the card, her fingers brushing his for half a second. Even that brief contact felt electric. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone should." She wanted to ask more, wanted to understand, but the exhaustion in his eyes told her she wouldn't get more tonight. "Good night, Lucien." "Good night, Kaelyn." She got out of the SUV and hurried to her building, rain soaking through her coat. By the time she reached her door and looked back, the SUV was already gone. Inside her apartment, Kaelyn locked the door, threw the deadbolt, and slid down to the floor, her back against the wood. Her phone buzzed. A text from Simone. "Girl, where are you? You were supposed to call me after your date." Kaelyn stared at the message. How was she supposed to explain what just happened? How was she supposed to say she'd accidentally texted a crime lord and he'd shown up like some kind of violent guardian angel? She didn't respond. Instead, she pulled out the black card Lucien had given her and stared at the number. Then she put it in her wallet. 3 days passed. Kaelyn tried to go back to normal. Tried to focus on her classes at Northwestern, on her job at the university library, on pretending that nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Nolan didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up at her apartment or her usual coffee shop. It was like he'd vanished from the planet. And Kaelyn knew with absolute certainty that it was because Lucien Moretti had told him to disappear. That should have been comforting. Instead, it was terrifying, because now she understood the kind of power Lucien wielded, the kind that made men vanish with a single conversation, the kind that made restaurants go silent, the kind that operated in shadows and never left fingerprints. On the 4th day, her phone rang. Unknown number. Her hand shook as she answered. "Hello? Kaelyn Mercer?" Male voice. Unfamiliar. Professional. "Who is this?" "My name is Marcus Webb. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Moretti." Her heart stopped. "Is something wrong?" "No, ma'am. Mr. Moretti wanted me to inform you that Nolan Pierce filed a police report yesterday claiming harassment. The report names you. It's false, of course, but Mr. Moretti thought you should know." Kaelyn's blood went cold. "He did what?" "It's being handled," Marcus said calmly. "The report will be dismissed, but Mr. Moretti also wanted you to know that Mr. Pierce is escalating. He's persistent." "What does that mean?" "It means you should be careful. Mr. Moretti has arranged for additional security. You won't see them, but they'll be nearby." "Wait, security? Like bodyguards?" "Discreet observation, for your safety." "I didn't ask for that." "No, ma'am, but Mr. Moretti doesn't require permission to keep people safe." The line went dead. Kaelyn stood in her kitchen, phone in hand, trying to process what just happened. Nolan had filed a false police report. Lucien had somehow gotten it dismissed, and now she had invisible bodyguards following her around. She should have been furious, should have called Lucien and told him to back off. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Relief. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the restaurant, about the way Lucien had walked in like he owned the air itself, about the exhaustion in his eyes, about the way he'd said someone I cared about like it was a wound that never fully healed. At 2 a.m., she pulled out her phone and stared at his number. Then, against every ounce of better judgment, she typed a message. Thank you for the security and for everything else. I don't know why you're helping me, but I'm grateful. She hit send before she could talk herself out of it. 3 minutes later, her phone buzzed. You're welcome. Sleep well. Short. Professional. But underneath it, Kaelyn felt something else. Something almost human. She put the phone down and closed her eyes. 2 weeks later, everything fell apart. Kaelyn was leaving campus after her last class when she saw him. Nolan, standing across the quad, watching her. He didn't approach, didn't wave, just stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes locked on her. Her blood turned to ice. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and called the number on the black card. Lucien answered on the first ring. He's here, she said, her voice barely steady. Nolan, he's watching me. Where are you? Northwestern, near the library. Don't move. I'm sending someone. Lucien, do not move. The line went dead. Kaelyn stood frozen on the quad, every instinct screaming at her to run. But she didn't. She trusted that Lucien would send someone, that she'd be okay. 3 minutes later, a black sedan pulled up to the curb. The driver, Marcus, she assumed, got out and walked straight toward her. Miss Mercer, get in the car. Now. She didn't argue. She got in. As they pulled away, she looked back. Nolan was gone. But she knew he'd been there, knew he'd been watching, and knew this wasn't over. The sedan didn't take her home. It took her to a building in the West Loop, modern glass and steel, the kind of place that screamed money and power. Marcus led her through a private entrance, past security, and into an elevator that required a key card to operate. Where are we going? Kaelyn asked. Mr. Moretti's office. The elevator doors opened on the top floor. The space was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, dark wood, leather furniture, and an atmosphere that felt more like a fortress than an office. Lucien stood by the windows, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. When he saw her, he ended the call immediately. Are you hurt? He asked, crossing the room in 3 strides. No, just scared. His jaw tightened. Marcus, get security footage from Northwestern. I want to know everywhere Pierce went today. Already on it, Marcus said, disappearing into another room. Lucien turned back to Kaelyn. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked genuinely angry. Not the controlled, icy kind. The kind that burned. This is my fault, he said quietly. How is this your fault? Because I warned him, and now he knows you're connected to me, which means he's not just obsessed, he's vindictive. Kaelyn sank into one of the leather chairs, exhaustion hitting her all at once. What do I do? Lucien crouched in front of her, his eyes level with hers. You let me handle this. What does that mean? It means Nolan Pierce made a mistake, and I'm going to make sure he understands exactly how big that mistake was. The cold certainty in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it made her feel safe, which was maybe the most dangerous thing of all. I can't keep doing this, she whispered, living in fear, looking over my shoulder. I just want my life back. I know, Lucien said softly, and I'll give it back to you. But right now, you need to trust me. She looked into his eyes, dark, intense, utterly focused on her, and realized something terrifying. She did trust him, maybe more than she'd ever trusted anyone. Okay, she whispered. Lucien stood, pulling out his phone. Marcus, I want surveillance on Pierce, 24 hours. If he so much as breathes near her again, I want to know. He ended the call and turned back to Kaelyn. You're staying here tonight. What? I'm not sending you home alone, not with Pierce out there. You'll stay in the guest suite upstairs. Marcus will bring your things. Lucien, I can't just... Yes, you can. His tone left no room for argument. Kaelyn wanted to fight, wanted to insist she'd be fine. But the truth was, she was terrified, and the thought of being alone in her apartment while Nolan was out there made her skin crawl. Just tonight, she said. Just tonight, Lucien agreed. But they both knew it was a lie. Because the moment she agreed to stay, the moment she let him pull her deeper into his world, something between them shifted, and neither of them could pretend it was just about safety anymore. The guest suite was on the 42nd floor, accessible only by private elevator. Kaelyn stood in the center of it, trying to process the sheer scale of wealth surrounding her. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook Chicago's skyline, the city lights bleeding into the darkness like stars fallen to earth. The furniture was minimalist but expensive, the kind of expensive that didn't need to announce itself. A king bed with sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent. A bathroom larger than her entire apartment. Everything perfectly placed, perfectly clean, perfectly empty. It felt like a cage made of luxury. Marcus had delivered her overnight bag 20 minutes ago. He'd sent someone to her apartment to pack it, which should have felt invasive but instead just felt efficient. He'd also left a phone on the nightstand. Black, sleek, one number programmed into it. Lucien's. Kaelyn sat on the edge of the bed and stared at that phone like it might explode. Everything in her life had changed in 2 weeks. She'd gone from worried about midterms and student loans to hiding in a crime lord's penthouse because her stalker ex-date had decided she was worth destroying. Her real phone buzzed. Simone. Girl, you've been MIA for days. Coffee tomorrow? I need details on mystery date guy. Kaelyn's fingers hovered over the keyboard. What was she supposed to say? Sorry, can't do coffee. I'm currently under the protection of Chicago's most dangerous man because the guy from my bad date is escalating into full psycho mode, and also I might be developing feelings for my criminal benefactor, which is absolutely insane, but here we are. She typed back, crazy week. Rain check? Simone's response was immediate. You better not be ghosting me for some guy. Never. Promise. Just dealing with some stuff. You okay? No. She wasn't okay. She was so far from okay, she couldn't even see okay in the rearview mirror. Yeah. Just tired. She put the phone down before Simone could ask more questions. Then she looked at the black phone, picked it up, put it down, picked it up again. Before she could talk herself out of it, she called the only number in it. Lucien answered immediately. Everything all right? His voice was different on the phone, closer, more intimate somehow. I don't know how to do this, Kaelyn said quietly. Do what? Any of this. Hiding, being protected, letting someone else control my life. Silence on the other end. Then, you're not hiding. You're being smart. It doesn't feel smart. It feels like I'm running away. There's a difference between running away and strategic retreat. Is that what you call it when you hide from your problems? She heard something that might have been a laugh, dry, humorless. I don't hide from my problems. I eliminate them. That's not exactly comforting. It's not supposed to be comforting. It's supposed to be honest. Kaelyn stood and walked to the window, pressing her forehead against the cold glass. The city sprawled below her, millions of people living normal lives, going to work, coming home, not thinking about stalkers or crime lords, or the fact that one wrong text message could derail everything. Can I ask you something? She said. You keep asking if you can ask questions. Just ask. Why do you care? About what? About me. You don't know me. We've spent maybe 2 hours total in the same room. Why go to all this trouble? The pause was longer this time. She could hear him breathing on the other end, controlled, measured, like even his breath was calculated. Because walking away isn't an option, he finally said. Why not? Because I've walked away before, and I know what that costs. There it was again, that weight in his voice, that old pain he kept locked behind walls of control and cold authority. The person you mentioned, Kaelyn said carefully, the one who sent the message 5 years ago. What happened? That's not a conversation for tonight. When is it a conversation for? Maybe never. That's not fair. Fair doesn't exist in my world. Kaelyn's grip tightened on the phone. Then why am I here? If your world is so terrible, why drag me into it? I didn't drag you anywhere. You texted me. You got in my car. You agreed to stay. Every choice has been yours. That's bullshit, and you know it. You scared Nolan away. You put security on me without asking. You brought me here without giving me a real choice. You've been controlling this entire situation from the start. Yes. No hesitation, no apology, just acknowledgement. So don't tell me I had choices when we both know I've been following your script since the moment you walked into that restaurant. Another silence. This one felt different, heavier. "You're right," Lucien said quietly. "I've been controlling the situation, because that's what I do. I see chaos and I impose order. I see threats and I neutralize them. I see people in danger and I step in whether they want me to or not. It's not noble. It's not heroic. It's just who I am. And what if I don't want to be another one of your controlled situations? Then tell me to walk away, right now. Tell me to pull the security. Tell me you'd rather handle Nolan Pierce on your own. Tell me you want your life back exactly as it was." Kaelyn opened her mouth, closed it. The words should have been easy. She should have wanted him to walk away, should have wanted her normal life back. But the truth was more complicated. "I can't," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because I'm terrified. And you're the only person who's made me feel safe since this started. And I hate that. I hate that I need you, but I do." The admission hung in the air between them, raw and exposed. "Get some sleep," Lucien said finally. His voice was softer now, almost gentle. "Tomorrow, we figure out the next move." "What is the next move?" "We make sure Nolan understands that you're untouchable." "And how do we do that?" "By showing him exactly who he's dealing with." The line went dead. Kaelyn stood by the window for another hour, watching the city breathe below her, before exhaustion finally dragged her to bed. She didn't expect to sleep, but the moment her head hit the pillow, her body betrayed her and pulled her under. She dreamed of restaurants and rain and hands that wouldn't let go. Morning came too fast. Pale light filtered through the windows, turning Chicago's skyline into a watercolor painting. Kaelyn woke disoriented, forgetting for a moment where she was. Then reality crashed back in. Someone knocked on the door. 3 precise raps. "Come in," she called, pulling the blanket up higher. Marcus entered carrying a tray. Coffee, toast, fruit. He set it on the table by the window without a word. "Mr. Moretti is in a meeting," Marcus said. "He asked me to inform you that you're free to move about the building. Security codes for the elevator are on the notepad by the phone. He'll be available at noon." "That's 3 hours from now." "Yes, ma'am." "What am I supposed to do for 3 hours?" "Whatever you'd like. There's a gym on the 38th floor, library on 40, pool on 41. "This building has a pool?" "Mr. Moretti owns the building. It has everything." "Of course he did. Of course it did." Marcus left as quietly as he'd entered. Kaelyn drank the coffee, perfect temperature, perfect strength, and stared at the city below. She should have felt trapped, should have felt like a prisoner in a gilded cage. Instead, she felt restless. She showered, changed into clean clothes from her bag, and decided to explore. The elevator codes worked exactly as Marcus said. She rode down to the library on the 40th floor and found herself in a space that looked like it belonged in a European mansion. Dark wood shelves, leather chairs, books that actually looked red instead of decorative. She pulled a random volume off the shelf. Philosophy. Camus. The Myth of Sisyphus. The margins were filled with notes in sharp, precise handwriting. Lucien's handwriting. She flipped through the pages, reading his annotations. Most were in English, some in Italian, a few in what looked like Latin. The notes weren't the musings of a crime lord. They were the thoughts of someone wrestling with existence itself. Questions about meaning, purpose, whether choice existed in a deterministic universe. "Finding anything interesting?" Kaelyn jumped, nearly dropping the book. Lucien stood in the doorway, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. No jacket, no tie. More human than she'd seen him before. "I didn't hear you come in," she said. "I'm good at not being heard." He walked over, glancing at the book in her hands. Something shifted in his expression, not quite embarrassment, more like someone being caught in a private moment. "I didn't take you for a philosophy reader." "I'm not. I was just exploring." "And decided to read my margin notes?" "They're interesting. Depressing, but interesting." Camus tends toward the depressing. "You read this in college?" "I read it last year." Kaelyn blinked. "You read existential philosophy for fun?" "I read it because I needed to understand whether the choices I make actually matter, or if I'm just going through motions predetermined by circumstances beyond my control." He took the book from her hands, his fingers brushing hers. "I still don't have an answer." That's bleak. That's reality. He put the book back on the shelf, then turned to face her. In the morning light, she could see details she'd missed before. Faint scar above his left eyebrow, dark circles under his eyes that makeup or lighting had hidden in the restaurant, the exhaustion that seemed permanently etched into his features. "Did you sleep?" she asked. "No." "Why not?" "I don't sleep much." "Ever?" 3, maybe 4 hours a night, if I'm lucky. That's not healthy. Very few things about my life are healthy. Kaelyn crossed her arms. You know, for someone who saves people, you're incredibly self-destructive. I don't save people. I manage problems. That's the same thing. No, it's not. He walked past her, running his fingers along the spines of books. Saving people implies nobility, altruism. I don't do what I do because I'm good. I do it because I know what happens when no one does anything. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, you dropped everything to help a stranger based on a wrong number. That sounds pretty altruistic. Lucien stopped walking, turned to face her. His expression was unreadable. You want to know why I really came that night? He asked quietly. Yes? Because the message reminded me of Elena. The name hung in the air between them. Kaelyn didn't know who Elena was, but she understood immediately that this was the person from 5 years ago, the one who'd sent a message, the one he'd been too late for. Who was she? Kaelyn asked softly. My sister. His voice was flat, empty. She was 19, dating a guy our father disapproved of. He was jealous, possessive. Sound familiar? Kaelyn's stomach dropped. One night she texted me, Lucien continued, said she needed help, said he wouldn't let her leave. I was in New York closing a deal, told her I'd be there in 2 hours, told her to lock herself in the bathroom and wait. He stopped, exhaled slowly. I was 90 minutes away when I got the second text, the one that said, never mind, false alarm. Lucien, I believed her. Thought she was overreacting, thought she'd sorted it out. His hands clenched into fists. I found her 3 days later, in the river. Coroner said she'd been dead for 48 hours. The words landed like physical blows. Kaelyn felt tears sting her eyes. The nevermind text, Lucien said quietly. He sent it. From her phone. After. Oh my God. So when I got your message and saw the fear in it, I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I just moved. Because I'd rather show up for 100 false alarms than be late for one real emergency. Kaelyn didn't know what to say. Every response felt inadequate. Every word too small for the weight of what he'd just shared. I'm sorry, she finally whispered. Don't be. Just understand why I won't apologize for controlling the situation, because I know what happens when I don't. He walked toward the door, then stopped. Marcus has updates on Pierce. Meeting in my office in 10 minutes. You should be there. He left before she could respond. Kaelyn stood alone in the library, surrounded by books and old grief, and realized something terrifying. Lucien Moretti wasn't just dangerous because of what he did. He was dangerous because of why he did it. And she was starting to understand him, which meant she was already in too deep. 10 minutes later, Kaelyn sat in Lucien's office while Marcus pulled up security footage on a massive screen. Lucien stood by the windows, arms crossed, face unreadable. Pierce has been busy, Marcus said, clicking through images. He's contacted 3 different private investigators in the last week. All of them refused the job once they learned who they'd be investigating. Smart investigators, Lucien muttered. He's also filed 2 more false police reports. Harassment, stalking, both naming Miss Mercer, both dismissed within hours thanks to our contacts in the department. He's trying to build a pattern, Kaelyn said. Make it look like I'm the problem. Yes, Marcus agreed. Classic Darvo strategy. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. Will it work? She asked. Not with Mr. Moretti's resources behind you, Marcus said, but it shows Pierce is strategic. This isn't just obsession, it's revenge. Lucien turned from the window. What else? He's been to your apartment building 4 times in the last 3 days, Marcus said, pulling up footage of Nolan lurking outside her brownstone. Never goes in, just watches, waits. Kaelyn's skin crawled watching him, the way he stood there, patient, predatory. He knows she's not there, Lucien said. Correct. Which means he's waiting for her to return. How long before he escalates? Kaelyn asked, her voice tight. Marcus and Lucien exchanged a look. He already has, Marcus said. He clicked to another image. Kaelyn's apartment door. Scratched, defaced. Words carved into the wood. Whore, liar, mine. Kaelyn's breath stopped. When? She managed. Last night. Building security didn't catch him. He disabled the hallway camera first. So he's escalating and learning, Lucien said. His voice had gone cold, dangerous. Not just obsessed, organized. Do we go to the police? Kaelyn asked. And tell them what? Lucien replied. That a man who's filed multiple reports against you for harassment vandalized your door? They'll think you did it yourself for attention. That's insane. That's how the system works. He's poisoned the well, made you the villain in the official record. Kaelyn stood, pacing. Her hands were shaking. So what do we do? Just wait for him to get bored? Hope he gives up? Men like Pierce don't give up, Lucien said. They escalate until something stops them. And what stops them? Lucien's expression was answer enough. No, Kaelyn said immediately. Whatever you're thinking, no. I haven't said anything. You don't have to. I can see it in your face. You're thinking about making him disappear. I'm thinking about neutralizing a threat. That's the same thing. No, it's not. Lucien walked toward her, his movements controlled but purposeful. Making him disappear means he's gone permanently. Neutralizing means he understands that touching you costs more than he's willing to pay. And how do you make him understand that? By speaking his language. Which is? Fear. The word hung between them. Kaelyn wanted to argue, wanted to insist there had to be another way. But the truth was, she'd tried other ways. Restraining orders, police reports, avoidance. None of it worked. Nolan just kept coming. I don't want you to hurt him, she said quietly. I won't, unless he leaves me no choice. And what if he does leave you no choice? Lucien's eyes locked onto hers. Then I'll do what needs to be done, and you'll hate me for it, but you'll be alive to hate me. Kaelyn's throat was tight. I don't want to be the reason you become a monster. Something flickered in Lucien's expression, something that looked almost like pain. I became a monster a long time ago, he said softly. You're just the first person who's made me wish I wasn't. Before she could respond, Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. We have a problem, Marcus said. What now? Lucien asked. Pierce just posted on social media. Photos of Miss Mercer, her address, her class schedule, her work location, everything. Kaelyn's blood went cold. He what? Marcus turned the screen toward her. Her stomach dropped. Nolan had created an entire thread painting her as a dangerous stalker. Photos of her leaving campus, walking to work, sitting in coffee shops. All taken without her knowledge. All captioned with lies about her harassing him, threatening him, refusing to leave him alone. How many people have seen this, she asked. It's been shared 200 times in the last hour. Comments are, not good. Kaelyn scrolled through the comments. Strangers calling her crazy, psycho, telling Nolan to get a gun, saying he should defend himself. Some were even sharing her address, encouraging people to keep an eye out for her. He's turned me into a villain, she whispered. Strangers think I'm the stalker. This is doxing, Marcus said. We can get the post taken down, but once it's on the internet, it never really goes away, Kaelyn finished. She sank into a chair, her legs suddenly weak. He's destroying my reputation, my safety, my entire life. Lucien's jaw was tight enough to crack teeth. He pulled out his phone and made a call. I need a full digital sweep, he said. Everything Pierce has posted about Kaelyn Mercer needs to disappear in the next 30 minutes. I don't care what it costs. And I want his accounts locked. All of them. He paused. No. I want him to know it was me. Let him feel what it's like to lose control. He ended the call and turned to Kaelyn. This ends today, he said. How? By making him understand he's out of his depth. Lucien. No more talking, no more waiting. He just painted a target on your back for every vigilante with an internet connection. That's attempted murder by proxy. I'm not letting this continue. What are you going to do? What I should have done 2 weeks ago. He walked out of the office, leaving Kaelyn alone with Marcus. Should I be worried? She asked. Marcus considered the question. Mr. Moretti doesn't do anything without calculating every variable. If he's moving now, it's because waiting became more dangerous than acting. That's not an answer. No, Marcus agreed, but it's the truth. 2 hours later, Lucien returned. His knuckles were bruised, his shirt was wrinkled, but his expression was calm. It's done, he said. Kaelyn stood. What's done? Nolan Pierce is currently in a holding cell downtown. He'll be arraigned tomorrow morning on charges of stalking, harassment, criminal trespass, and doxing. How did you... I gave the district attorney evidence he couldn't ignore. Photos, videos, digital footprints, everything Pierce thought he'd deleted. Turns out he's not as tech-savvy as he believed. Will it stick? Yes. He'll take a plea deal. Mandatory counseling, restraining order, ankle monitor. If he violates any of it, he goes to prison. Real prison, not county. Kaelyn should have felt relieved, should have felt safe, but something in Lucien's tone told her there was more. What else? She asked. Lucien's expression hardened. I also made it clear that if he ever thinks about you again, if he so much as whispers your name, the criminal charges will be the least of his problems. You threatened him. No, I promised him. Lucien, he had photos of you sleeping, Kaelyn. Lucien's voice was quiet, but sharp enough to cut. Taken through your apartment window, dated from 3 weeks ago, before you ever texted me, before he had any reason to think you were connected to me. He'd been planning this from the start. The room tilted. Kaelyn grabbed the desk for support. He was outside my window, she whispered, while I was sleeping. Yes. Oh, God. So don't ask me to feel bad about what I said to him. Don't ask me to show restraint. He gave up his right to civility the moment he turned you into prey. Kaelyn's hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. Pure burning rage that Nolan had violated her in ways she hadn't even known about. I want to see him, she said. No. I want to look him in the eye and... And what? Give him the satisfaction of seeing how much he hurt you? Give him ammunition for his victim narrative? Lucien shook his head. He doesn't get to see you again, not ever. That's the deal. It's not your choice. You're right, it's yours. But I'm asking you not to go, because seeing him will only make this worse. Kaelyn wanted to argue, wanted to insist on confrontation, but the exhaustion in Lucien's eyes stopped her. Fine, she said. I won't go. Thank you. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Kaelyn asked the question she'd been avoiding. What happens now? Now you go home. To my apartment? I'm having the door replaced, locks upgraded, security system installed. It'll be ready by tonight. And after that? After that, you go back to your life. Classes, work, coffee with your friend, all of it. Kaelyn's chest tightened. What about you? What about me? Do I just never see you again? Lucien was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, that would probably be best. Why? Because the longer you're in my orbit, the more danger you're in. Not from Nolan, from everything else. The people who want to hurt me. The enemies I've made. The life I live. He looked at her with something that might have been regret. You deserve normal, safe. I can't give you that. I didn't ask for safe. You should. Stop telling me what I should want. Someone has to, because you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly, Kaelyn shot back. You saved me, protected me, showed me parts of yourself you don't show anyone. And now you think you can just send me home and pretend none of it happened? Yes, that's exactly what I think. Well, you're wrong. Kaelyn, no. You don't get to make this decision alone. You don't get to decide I'm better off without you when I'm the one who gets to choose what risks I'm willing to take. You don't understand the risks. Then explain them. I just did. No, you gave me vague warnings about danger and enemies. That's not an explanation, that's a cop-out. Lucien's control cracked. Just slightly. Just enough for her to see the frustration beneath it. You want details? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. Fine. 2 months ago, someone tried to kill me. Car bomb. Didn't work, obviously, but 3 of my men died in the blast. 6 weeks ago, a shipment of medical supplies I was donating to a clinic got hijacked and burned because someone wanted to send me a message. 4 weeks ago, someone I trusted for 15 years tried to poison me at a business dinner. This is my life, Kaelyn. Death, betrayal, violence. And you want to walk into it voluntarily? I want to make my own choices. Even if those choices get you killed? Even then. They stared at each other, the air between them electric with tension and unspoken words. You're being reckless, Lucien said finally. And you're being a coward. His expression froze. Excuse me? You heard me. You're hiding behind concern for my safety because you're scared of what happens if I stay. You're scared of caring about someone again. Scared of losing someone else. Scared that I'll see who you really are and run. You should run, but I won't. Why not? Because I've seen who you really are. The man who reads philosophy at 3 a.m., the man who dropped everything for a stranger's text, the man who carries his dead sister's memory like a weight on his chest. I've seen all of it, and I'm still here. Lucien's controls shattered. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands gripping her shoulders. You don't know what you're saying, he said roughly. You don't know what staying means. Then show me. Kaelyn, show me. Prove I'm wrong. Prove I should run. His grip tightened. His eyes searched hers. And for a moment she thought he might actually kiss her, might actually let the walls drop completely. Instead, he let go. Marcus will take you home, he said, his voice returning to that cold, controlled tone. Your building is secure. The charges against Pierce will stick. You're safe now. That's it? You're just done? Yes. Coward, she said again. Something flashed in his eyes. Anger, hurt, maybe both. Get out, he said quietly. What? Get out. Kaelyn's heart was hammering. She wanted to push harder, wanted to make him break, but the look in his eyes told her she'd already crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She grabbed her bag and walked toward the door. Stopped. Turned back. For what it's worth, she said, I think Elena would want you to let yourself be happy, even if it scares you. She left before he could respond. Marcus drove her home in silence. The apartment door had been replaced. New locks, security system, everything exactly as Lucien had promised. Inside, her things were exactly as she'd left them, like the last 2 weeks had been a dream, except they weren't. Kaelyn sat on her couch and stared at the black phone Marcus had insisted she keep. Lucien's number was still the only one programmed into it. She should have deleted it, should have thrown the phone away, should have taken the gift of safety and walked away. Instead, she picked it up and typed a message. Thank you for everything. I meant what I said. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. 3 minutes passed. 5. 10. No response. Kaelyn put the phone down and told herself it was over, that she'd go back to her normal life, that she'd forget about Lucien Moretti and his world of violence and philosophy and grief. But at 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. You shouldn't have stayed. She typed back immediately. But I did. Another long pause. Then, this won't end well. Maybe, but at least it'll end honestly. The final message came 5 minutes later. Get some sleep, Kaelyn. We'll talk tomorrow. She stared at those words until her vision blurred. Tomorrow, he'd said tomorrow, which meant he wasn't done either. Kaelyn fell asleep with the phone in her hand and woke 6 hours later to pounding on her door. Her heart jumped into her throat. She grabbed the phone, ready to call Lucien, when she heard a familiar voice. Kaelyn, open up! I know you're in there. Simone. Kaelyn exhaled in relief and opened the door. Simone burst in, coffee in one hand and a newspaper in the other. Okay, you need to explain what the hell is going on, Simone said, throwing the newspaper on the coffee table. Because this is some next-level drama. Kaelyn looked at the paper. Front page, local section. Photo of Nolan being led out of a building in handcuffs. Headline. Financial exec charged with stalking and harassment. Oh no, Kaelyn whispered. Oh no is right. Your name is all over this article, so start talking. What happened? Kaelyn sank onto the couch. Where did she even start? It's complicated, she said. Uncomplicate it. So she did. She told Simone everything. The wrong number. Lucien. Nolan's escalation. The The doxing, the photos through her window, all of it. When she finished, Simone was silent for a long moment. "Let me get this straight," Simone finally said. "You accidentally texted Lucien Moretti." "The Lucien Moretti? And he just showed up?" "Yes." "And then protected you from your stalker ex-date?" "Yes." "And now you have feelings for him?" Kaelyn opened her mouth to deny it. Couldn't. "Yes," she admitted. Simone set down her coffee. "Girl, you are in way over your head. I know. Do you? Because Lucien Moretti isn't some misunderstood bad boy. He's dangerous, like actually dangerous. I know that too. And you still want to see him again?" Kaelyn looked at the black phone on her coffee table. "Yes," she whispered. Simone followed her gaze. "Is that his phone?" "He gave it to me. For emergencies." "Have you used it?" "Last night." "And?" "And he said we'd talk today." Simone rubbed her face. Okay, let's think about this logically. What do you actually know about him?" "Not much. He's private, guarded." "That's not comforting." "He reads philosophy, has insomnia, lost his sister 5 years ago, carries guilt like it's a second skin." "Still not comforting." "He makes me feel safe, Simone. For the first time in weeks, I felt like someone actually gave a damn whether I lived or died." "Because he's protective, that doesn't mean he's good for you." "Maybe not, but I need to find out." Simone looked at her like she was staring at a stranger. "You're serious about this?" "I think I am." "Then promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you'll be careful, that you won't lose yourself in whatever this is, that you'll walk away if it gets too dark." Kaelyn wanted to promise, wanted to swear she'd maintain boundaries and keep perspective, but the truth was, she was already too far gone. "I'll try," she said instead. It was the best she could offer. Simone left an hour later, still worried but resigned. Kaelyn spent the rest of the morning catching up on schoolwork, trying to pretend everything was normal. At 2 p.m., the black phone rang. Her heart stopped. She grabbed it. "Hello? It's me." Lucien's voice, tired, rough. "Can you talk?" "Yes." "I owe you an apology for yesterday, for telling you to leave." "You were protecting yourself." "I was being a coward." "You were right." Kaelyn's breath caught. "You never strike me as someone who admits when they're wrong." "I don't, which should tell you how much yesterday bothered me." A pause. "Have dinner with me tonight." "Dinner?" "Yes, actual dinner. No emergencies, no stalkers, no security briefings, just dinner." "Why?" "Because I think we need to have a conversation without Marcus or danger or adrenaline clouding everything. A real conversation. As real as I'm capable of." Kaelyn bit her lip. "What if I say no?" "Then I'll respect that, and we'll both move on with our lives." "And if I say yes?" "Then we see where this goes. Honestly. No more walls. No more hiding." Her heart was racing. This was the moment, the point of no return. She could walk away right now, go back to normal, forget this ever happened. Or she could jump. "Where and when?" she asked. She could hear the smile in his voice. "I'll pick you up at 7. The line went dead. Kaelyn sat in her apartment, phone in hand, and realized she'd just agreed to something that would change everything. For better or worse, there was no going back now. 7 o'clock came faster than Kaelyn expected. She'd spent the afternoon in a state of controlled panic, trying on 5 different outfits before settling on something simple: dark jeans, a silk blouse, leather jacket. Not trying too hard, not trying too little. The kind of outfit that said she was taking this seriously without admitting how terrified she actually was. When the knock came, her heart nearly exploded out of her chest. She opened the door. Lucien stood in the hallway wearing dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that made him look less like a crime lord and more like someone who belonged in an architecture magazine. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd showered recently. No bodyguards visible. No Marcus hovering nearby. Just him. "Hi," she said, her voice embarrassingly breathless. "Hi." His eyes scanned her face, searching for something. "You look nervous." "I am nervous." "Good. So am I." That admission made her feel slightly less like she was about to jump off a cliff. Where are we going? Somewhere quiet, where we can actually talk. He led her downstairs to the same black SUV from their first encounter, but this time he opened the door himself. No driver, no security detail, just the two of them. You're driving? She asked as he slid into the driver's seat. Shocking, I know. Turns out I'm capable of operating a vehicle without a team. I just assumed crime lords didn't do their own driving. Crime lords also don't typically take women to dinner, so tonight's full of surprises. He pulled away from the curb, navigating Chicago's evening traffic with the same controlled precision he seemed to apply to everything. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before Kaelyn realized they were leaving the city entirely, heading north along Lakeshore Drive. Where are we going? She asked again. My house. Her stomach flipped. Your house? I thought about taking you to a restaurant, but restaurants have audiences, people with phones, cameras. I wanted somewhere we could be completely honest without worrying about who's watching. So you're taking me to your house. If that makes you uncomfortable, I can turn around. Kaelyn considered it. Going to his house felt significant, final, like crossing a threshold she couldn't uncross. But hadn't she already decided to jump? Keep driving, she said. Lucien's house wasn't a house. It was an estate, hidden behind walls and gates in Lake Forest, the kind of property that whispered old money and older secrets. The main building was a restored Victorian mansion, all dark wood and leaded glass, surrounded by gardens that probably required a full-time staff. He led her inside through a side entrance that opened into a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a cooking show. All stainless steel and marble countertops and appliances that cost more than most cars. You cook? Kaelyn asked, watching him pull ingredients from the refrigerator. When I can't sleep, which is most nights, I need something to do with my hands. Cooking is meditative. What are you making? Risotto, asparagus, nothing fancy. That sounds fancy. Then you haven't eaten enough Italian food. He handed her a glass of wine. Make yourself comfortable. This'll take about 30 minutes. Kaelyn wandered through the first floor while he cooked, wine in hand, taking in details. The furniture was expensive, but lived in. Books everywhere, philosophy, history, fiction in 3 different languages. A piano in the corner of what looked like a library, sheet music scattered across the top, photos on the mantel, mostly old, mostly family. She recognized a younger version of Lucien in several of them, always standing slightly apart from the others. Like even then, he knew he didn't quite belong. One photo caught her attention. A teenage Lucien with his arm around a girl who had his eyes and his sharp features. Both of them laughing at something outside the frame. Elena. It had to be. That was taken the summer before she died, Lucien said from behind her. Kaelyn turned. He was leaning against the doorframe, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. She looks happy, Kaelyn said. She was. That summer, at least. He walked over, picking up the frame. She was the only person in this family who actually wanted me to be better. Everyone else just wanted me to be useful. What did she want you to be? Free. He set the photo down carefully. She used to tell me I didn't have to inherit our father's empire, that I could walk away, build something else. His jaw tightened. I told her she was naive, that walking away wasn't an option for people like us. And now? Now I think she was right. And I wasted years being too proud to admit it. The timer in the kitchen beeped. Lucien headed back without another word, leaving Kaelyn alone with Elena's photo and the weight of everything unspoken. Dinner was served in a small dining room with windows overlooking the gardens. The food was perfect, the kind of perfect that came from practice and precision, not just following a recipe. They ate in silence for a few minutes before Lucy finally spoke. You should know what you're getting into, he said, if this goes any further. Okay. My father built an empire on corruption, violence, and fear. When he died 3 years ago, I inherited all of it. The legitimate businesses, the illegal operations, the debts, the enemies, everything. And you've been trying to dismantle it. He looked up sharply. How did you know that? Because you don't strike me as someone who wants to be his father. Lucien set down his fork. I've spent the last 18 months systematically destroying everything he built, selling off assets, closing operations, severing ties. It's slow work because if I move too fast, the whole thing collapses violently. People die. Families get destroyed. So I have to be careful. Who knows what you're doing? Marcus, a few trusted advisors. That's it. If the wrong people found out, they'd kill me before I could finish. So you're living in constant danger. Yes. And you think bringing me into that is fair? No, I think it's selfish, which is why I tried to send you away. He leaned back, studying her. But you wouldn't go. So now I need you to understand the reality. People want me dead. Not metaphorically, actually dead. And if they find out you matter to me, they'll use you to get to me. Kaelyn's throat was tight. Has anyone ever told you you're terrible at romantic dinners? The corner of his mouth lifted, almost a smile. I'm told I lack charm. You have charm. You just hide it under layers of doom and gloom. It's not doom and gloom. It's honesty. It's both. She reached across the table, her hand covering his. I know this is dangerous. I know you're trying to scare me away. But I'm still here. Lucien's fingers curled around hers. His grip was firm, almost desperate. I don't know how to do this, he admitted quietly. This, whatever this is, I don't know how to let someone in without destroying them. Then we figure it out together. And if we can't, then at least we tried. He pulled her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. The gesture was so unexpectedly tender that it made her chest ache. Stay tonight, he said. Lucien, not like that. I have a dozen guest rooms. I just don't want to take you back yet. Don't want this to end. Kaelyn should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries. Should have protected herself from falling any deeper. Instead, she said, okay. They spent the rest of the evening in his library. He played piano, Chopin, melancholy and beautiful, while she curled up in a leather chair with a book she wasn't actually reading. It felt domestic, normal, like they were just two people spending a quiet evening together instead of a crime lord and the woman stupid enough to fall for him. Around midnight, Lucien stopped playing. I should show you to your room, he said, but neither of them moved. They stood there, 3 feet apart, the air between them electric with everything they weren't saying. Kaelyn, Lucien said quietly, if we cross this line, I know. There's no going back. I know that too. He closed the distance between them in 2 steps, his hands framing her face, his eyes searching hers one last time for certainty. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't careful, it was desperate and hungry and full of weeks of tension finally breaking. Kaelyn's hands fisted in his sweater, pulling him closer, and he responded by backing her against the bookshelf, his body pressing into hers like he was trying to memorize every point of contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucien rested his forehead against hers. Guest room, he said roughly. We should stick with the guest room plan. We should, Kaelyn agreed. Neither of them moved. Kaelyn, don't be noble. Not tonight. He pulled back just enough to look at her. This is a mistake. Probably. You'll regret it in the morning. Maybe, but I'll regret not doing it more. Something in his expression cracked. The control he maintained so carefully finally shattered. He kissed her again, harder this time, and when he lifted her, she wrapped her legs around his waist and let him carry her upstairs to a room that definitely wasn't a guest room. And for one night, they stopped thinking about consequences and danger and all the reasons this was impossible. For one night, they were just 2 people who'd found each other in the chaos and decided to hold on. Morning came with pale light filtering through curtains Kaelyn didn't remember closing. She woke slowly, disoriented, until she felt the weight of Lucien's arm across her waist and remembered exactly where she was. He was still asleep. Actually asleep. She'd never seen him look so unguarded. The tension that usually lived in his jaw was gone. His breathing was deep and even. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked peaceful. She didn't want to move, didn't want to break whatever spell had allowed him to actually rest. But her phone was buzzing somewhere in the pile of clothes on the floor. She carefully extracted herself from his grip, grabbed his shirt to cover herself, and found her phone buried in her jeans. 7 missed calls from Marcus. Her stomach dropped. She was about to call him back when Lucien's phone rang. His eyes snapped open immediately, all traces of peace vanishing as he grabbed the phone from his nightstand. What? His voice was sharp, alert, like he hadn't just been dead asleep 30 seconds ago. Kaelyn watched his expression change, darken. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. I'm on my way. He ended the call and was out of bed before Kaelyn could ask what was wrong. What happened? She asked as he pulled on clothes with military efficiency. There was an incident. I need to go. What kind of incident? The kind I need to handle personally. Lucien, Marcus is on his way to take you home. You'll be safe. I don't care about safe. What's happening? He stopped, turning to face her. His expression was cold, closed off. The man from last night had vanished, replaced by the dangerous stranger from the restaurant. Someone hit one of my operations. 3 men are dead, 2 more missing. This is what I meant last night. This is my world. Kaelyn's chest tightened. Let me help. You can't. I can. No, you can't. This isn't something you fix with good intentions and bravery. This is blood and bullets and bodies. So you're going home where you're safe, and I'm going to handle it. He left the room before she could argue. Kaelyn dressed quickly, her hands shaking. By the time she made it downstairs, Lucien was gone. Marcus was waiting by the front door, his expression grim. Miss Mercer, he said, we need to leave now. What happened? I'll brief you in the car. The drive back to the city was tense. Marcus explained in clinical terms that someone had attacked one of Lucien's warehouses. A legitimate operation, not one of the illegal ones Lucien was trying to shut down. 3 security guards were dead. 2 workers were missing. The building was burned to the ground. Who did it? Kaelyn asked. We don't know yet, but Mr. Moretti has enemies, lots of them. Because he's dismantling the empire. Marcus glanced at her in the rear-view mirror. He told you about that. Yes. Then you understand why he needs to handle this personally. If he shows weakness now, if he lets this attack go unanswered, everyone will smell blood in the water. So what does he do? What he always does. He finds who's responsible, and he makes sure they never make that mistake again. The rest of the drive was silent. Marcus dropped her at her apartment with strict instructions to stay inside until they understood the scope of the threat. Then he was gone, leaving Kaelyn alone with her thoughts and the lingering smell of smoke on Lucien's shirt that she was still wearing. She tried to focus on schoolwork, tried to pretend everything was normal, but every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped into her throat. Hours passed. No word from Lucien. By evening, she couldn't take it anymore. She called him. No answer. She called again and again. Each time it went to voicemail. At 9 p.m., someone knocked on her door. She looked through the peephole. Marcus. She opened the door. Is he okay? He's fine, but we have a situation. What kind of situation? The kind where you need to come with me, now. Something in his tone made her grab her jacket without arguing. They drove in silence to a building she didn't recognize in a part of the city she'd never visited. Industrial. Abandoned. The kind of place where bad things happen. Marcus led her through a loading dock and into what looked like an old factory. Her footsteps echoed off concrete and rusted metal. Then she heard voices. Angry voices. They rounded a corner and Kaelyn stopped dead. Lucien stood in the center of a massive room, blood on his knuckles, face bruised, eyes hollow with exhaustion and rage. Around him, 6 men stood in various states of alert, all armed, all watching something on the floor, someone on the floor, a man, beaten, bleeding, barely conscious. Lucien, Kaelyn said. He turned. For a moment his mask slipped and she saw the exhaustion beneath it. Then it snapped back into place. You shouldn't be here, he said. Marcus brought me. Marcus was wrong to do that. Marcus stepped forward. With respect, sir, she needs to see this. See what? Kaelyn asked. Lucien's jaw tightened. He walked over to the man on the floor and crouched down, grabbing a fistful of hair to lift the man's face toward the light. Kaelyn's blood turned to ice. Nolan. What? Her voice cracked. What is he doing here? He orchestrated the attack, Lucien said flatly. The warehouse, the deaths, all of it. That's impossible. He's in jail. You said, he made bail 3 days ago. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry. Lucien's voice was cold, empty. Turns out I should have worried more. Nolan laughed. It came out wet and broken. You really thought you could just throw me away? Make me disappear? I gave you a chance to walk away, Lucien said quietly. You should have taken it. You humiliated me, destroyed my reputation, turned me into a joke. Did you think I'd just accept that? I think you're a fool who doesn't understand when he's beaten. Nolan spat blood. I'm not beaten. I'm just getting started. Lucien stood, pulling a gun from his waistband. The casual way he did it made Kaelyn's stomach turn. Lucien, she said carefully. Don't. He killed 3 men, good men, men with families, because he wanted revenge for consequences he brought on himself. Then turn him over to the police. The police can't touch him. His father's a federal judge. He's got lawyers and money and connections. He'll be out in 6 months, and then he'll come after you again, and again, until one of us stops him permanently. And that person is going to be you? It has to be. Kaelyn walked forward, her legs shaking. She positioned herself between Lucien and Nolan. Move, Lucien said. No. Kaelyn, if you do this, you become exactly what everyone thinks you are. A murderer. A monster. I'm already those things. No, you're not. You're someone trying to be better. Someone trying to escape his father's shadow. But if you pull that trigger, you prove everyone right. You prove that you're just like him. Maybe I am. You're not. Her voice was steady now, certain. Because if you were, you wouldn't have saved me that night. Wouldn't have spent months dismantling an empire you could have kept. Wouldn't be standing here hesitating. I'm not hesitating. Yes, you are. Because you know I'm right. They stared at each other. The gun didn't waver, but something in Lucien's eyes did. Then Nolan spoke. Do it, he said, his voice a rasp. Pull the trigger. Make her watch. Show her who you really are. Lucien's finger tightened on the trigger. Kaelyn's heart stopped. Please, she whispered, don't make me watch you destroy yourself. For 5 endless seconds, nobody moved, nobody breathed. Then Lucien lowered the gun. Get him out of here, he said to his men. Drop him at the police station. Anonymous tip. Arson. Murder. Let the system deal with him. Boss, one of the men started. Do it. They dragged Nolan away, still laughing, still convinced he'd won something. When they were gone, Lucien turned to Kaelyn. His expression was unreadable. You shouldn't have done that, he said quietly. Done what? Stopped me. He'll get out eventually, and when he does, he'll come after you again. Then we'll deal with it then, together. There is no together, not anymore. The words landed like a physical blow. What are you talking about? Kaelyn asked. This. Tonight. You've seen what I almost did. What I wanted to do. His voice was hollow. You were right about me being a coward. Because I've been lying to myself, thinking I could be different, thinking I could build something clean. But I can't. This is who I am. This is all I'll ever be. That's not true. I had a gun to a man's head, and the only thing that stopped me was you, not my conscience, not some moral awakening, you. Which means the second you're not around, I'll go right back to being the monster everyone expects. So what are you saying? Lucien holstered the gun, walked to the exit, stopped without turning around. I'm saying Marcus will take you home. And you're going to delete my number, block me, forget this ever happened. No. It's not a request. I don't care, I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice. He walked out. Kaelyn stood in the empty warehouse, her mind reeling, trying to understand what just happened. Marcus appeared beside her. Come on, he said gently. Let's get you home. He's making a mistake. I know, but he won't listen. Not tonight. The drive home was a blur. Kaelyn kept replaying the scene in her head. The gun. The look in Lucien's eyes. The absolute certainty in his voice when he told her to forget him. Marcus walked her to her door. For what it's worth, he said, you were right about everything. He's not his father, he's better. But sometimes being better isn't enough. What does that mean? It means some men are too broken to be saved, even by people who love them. He left before she could ask what he meant by love. Inside her apartment, Kaelyn sat in the dark and stared at the black phone. She should delete his number, should walk away like he asked, should protect herself from the inevitable heartbreak. Instead, she typed a message. You're wrong about yourself, and I'm not giving up on you. She hit send. Hours passed, no response. Days passed, still nothing. A week went by. Silence. Kaelyn tried to go back to normal. Classes, work, coffee with Simone. But everything felt hollow, like she was going through motions in a play where she'd forgotten her lines. Nolan was arrested, charged with arson and manslaughter. His father's connections couldn't save him this time. The evidence was overwhelming. He was looking at 20 years. She should have felt relief, should have felt vindicated. Instead, she felt empty. 2 weeks after that night in the warehouse, Kaelyn came home to find her apartment door slightly ajar. Her heart jumped into her throat. She pulled out her phone, ready to call the police, when a voice came from inside. "Don't. It's just me." She pushed the door open. Lucien sat on her couch in the dark. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days, like he'd been fighting a war inside his own head and losing. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I tried to stay away, tried to convince myself you were better off." He stood, walking toward her slowly. "But I can't. I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop hearing your voice. Can't stop seeing the way you looked at me in that warehouse like you actually believed I could be better." "I do believe that." "You shouldn't." "Too bad." He stopped 3 feet away. "I'm not good for you, Kaelyn. Everything I touch turns to ash. Everyone I love ends up dead or destroyed. You deserve someone safe, someone clean, someone who doesn't have blood on his hands and ghosts in his head." "I don't want safe. I want you." "Why?" "Because you make me brave, because you showed up when no one else would, because underneath all the control and violence and fear, you're the most honest person I've ever met." "Honest," he repeated, the word bitter in his mouth. "You want honesty? Fine. I'm dismantling my father's empire, but the process is making me enemies I can't control. Someone tried to kill me yesterday, planted a bomb in my car. I survived because Marcus insisted on checking it first. He's in the hospital now with third-degree burns because he took a blast meant for me. That's my honesty. That's my reality. Death follows me like a shadow, and I'm dragging you into it." Kaelyn's blood went cold. "Marcus is alive?" "For now. Doctors say he'll recover, but that's not the point." "Then what is the point?" "The point is, I can't protect you, can't keep you safe, can't promise you anything except danger and violence, and a life spent looking over your shoulder." "I'm not asking for promises." "Then what are you asking for?" "A chance. Just a chance to see if we can make this work." Lucien's control cracked. He closed the distance between them, his hands framing her face, his forehead pressing against hers. "If I stay," he said roughly, "if we do this, I need you to understand something. My world doesn't forgive. It doesn't forget. And it sure as hell doesn't play fair. The people after me won't hesitate to use you against me. They'll threaten you, hurt you, maybe worse, and I might not be able to stop them." "I know." "And you're still standing here." "Yes." "Why?" "Because losing you now, after everything, after feeling what it's like to actually matter to someone," her voice broke, "that's scarier than anything your enemies could do." His grip tightened. "God, you're going to get us both killed." "Probably." He kissed her then, desperate, fierce, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her before the world ripped them apart. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he said, "If we're doing this, we're doing it my way. You don't go anywhere alone. You keep that phone with you always. You tell me everywhere you go. You follow every security protocol Marcus sets up." "Fine. I'm serious, Kaelyn. No arguments, no pushback. If I tell you to run, you run. If I tell you to hide, you hide. Your life is more important than your pride." "I understand. Do you? Because once you step into this, once you become someone I care about publicly, you become a target. And targets don't get second chances in my world." "I understand," she said again, firmer this time. He studied her face, searching for doubt, finding only determination. "You're insane," he muttered. "Probably, but so are you. So we match." That almost made him smile. Almost. "All right," he said finally. "We try. But the second it gets too dangerous, the second I think you're not safe, I'm pulling you out. And you don't get a vote." "Deal." They stood in her dark apartment, holding each other like lifelines, both knowing they'd just made a choice that could destroy them. But neither of them could walk away. Not anymore. 3 days later, everything changed. Kaelyn was leaving campus when she noticed the car. Black sedan, tinted windows, following her at a distance. Her training from Marcus kicked in. She didn't panic, didn't run, just changed her route, took side streets. The car followed. She called Lucien. "Someone's following me," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Where are you?" She told him. "Don't go home. Head to the coffee shop on Clark. Public space. Stay where people can see you. I'm sending backup." The coffee shop was packed. Kaelyn found a seat by the window and waited. 10 minutes later, 2 of Lucien's men appeared, flanking the entrance. Professional, invisible to anyone who wasn't looking. But the black sedan didn't leave. It parked across the street. Waiting. Kaelyn's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. "Hello? Miss Mercer." Male voice, unfamiliar, cold. "You have something that belongs to us. We'd like it back." Her blood froze. "I don't know what you're talking about." Lucien Moretti. He's been very busy lately, closing operations, selling assets, destroying partnerships that took decades to build. We'd like him to stop. I don't control what he does. No, but he cares about you, which means you have leverage. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to convince him to restore what he's dismantled, or we're going to take from him what he's taken from us. And what's that? Everything. The line went dead. Kaelyn's hands were shaking. She called Lucien back immediately. "They just called me," she said. "The people behind the attack. They want you to stop dismantling the empire. Said if you don't, they'll take everything from you." Lucien was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was ice. "Where's the car now?" "Still across the street. Stay exactly where you are. Don't move, don't leave. I'm 10 minutes out." 8 minutes later, 3 SUVs pulled up outside the coffee shop. Lucien got out of the middle vehicle, flanked by armed men. He scanned the street, spotted the black sedan, and walked directly toward it. The sedan's doors opened. 3 men got out. They didn't draw weapons, didn't move aggressively, just stood there. Kaelyn watched through the window as Lucien spoke to them. The conversation was brief, tense. Then the men got back in their car and drove away. Lucien walked into the coffee shop. His expression was carved from stone. "We're leaving," he said. "Now." "What did they say?" "Not here." He escorted her to his SUV. The drive to his estate was silent and tense. Once inside, he poured himself a drink, downed it, and poured another. "They're not bluffing," he said finally. "The people who called you, they're connected to the old network, the one my father built. They've been waiting for me to make a mistake, and I just did." "What mistake?" "You. They know about you, know you matter, and now they're going to use that against me." "So what do we do?" Lucien turned to face her. "We end this. Tonight. I call a meeting, face them directly. Make it clear that threatening you is a line they don't cross. And if they don't listen, then this becomes a war. And wars are messy. People die, including people I care about." Kaelyn's chest tightened. "Maybe I should just leave. Go somewhere else until this is over. They'd find you. These people have resources, connections. You'd never be safe. The only way to protect you is to face them head on." "Let me come with you." "Absolutely not." "Lucien, no, you stay here with Marcus's team, behind walls and security. I handle the meeting. That's not negotiable." She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes told her it would be pointless. "Fine," she said, "but you come back. Alive." "That's non-negotiable too." He crossed the room, pulling her into his arms. "I'll come back. Promise." "I promise." It was a lie. They both knew it. But she let him say it anyway. Lucien left 2 hours later, dressed in his armor of expensive suits and cold authority. Kaelyn watched from the window as his convoy disappeared into the night. Then she waited, and waited, and waited. Hours passed. No word. Kaelyn paced, tried to read, tried to sleep, failed at all of it. At 3 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. Her heart stopped. "Hello? Is this Kaelyn Mercer?" Female voice, professional, clinical. "Yes." "This is Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Lucien Moretti listed you as his emergency contact. He's been admitted. You need to come immediately." The world tilted. What happened? The meeting didn't go well, the voice said, and then quieter. You should hurry. The line went dead. Kaelyn's legs gave out. She collapsed onto the floor, the phone still clutched in her hand, and realized with absolute certainty that everything they'd tried to build was crumbling, and she might not make it to the hospital in time to say goodbye. Kaelyn didn't remember getting off the floor, didn't remember grabbing her jacket, or finding the keys to one of the estate's cars that Marcus had shown her weeks ago in case of emergency. She just remembered movement. Running. The night air burning her lungs as she sprinted to the garage. The engine roared to life. Her hands shook so badly she could barely grip the steering wheel. Northwestern Memorial was 40 minutes away. She made it in 25, blowing through red lights and stop signs like they were suggestions instead of laws. The hospital entrance was chaos. Ambulances, police cars, news vans already setting up, vultures drawn to blood. Kaelyn abandoned the car in a no-parking zone and ran inside, her shoes sliding on the polished floors as she skidded to a stop at the reception desk. Lucien Moretti, she gasped. I got a call. I'm his emergency contact. The nurse's expression shifted. Recognition, pity. Fourth floor ICU, but you'll need to... Kaelyn was already running. The elevator took forever. Each second felt like an hour. When the doors finally opened on the fourth floor, she found herself in a hallway that smelled like disinfectant and fear. A security guard stepped in front of her immediately. Ma'am, this is a restricted... Kaelyn Mercer. I'm on his emergency contact list. Let me through. The guard spoke into his radio, listened, stepped aside. The ICU was a maze of curtained rooms and beeping machines. Kaelyn followed the sound of raised voices to a room at the end of the hall where doctors and nurses moved with urgent precision. Through the small window in the door, she saw him. Lucien, on a hospital bed, face bruised and swollen, chest wrapped in bandages that were already seeping red. Tubes and wires connecting him to machines that beeped and hissed like they were the only things keeping him tethered to life. A doctor intercepted her before she could push through the door. Miss Mercer? Is he alive? Yes. Barely. He's lost a lot of blood. 3 gunshot wounds, 1 to the shoulder, 1 to the chest that missed his heart by centimeters, 1 to the abdomen that we're still trying to stabilize. He also has a skull fracture and significant internal bleeding. The words hit her like physical blows. Will he survive? The doctor's pause said everything. We're doing everything we can, she said carefully. But the next few hours are critical. If he makes it through the night, his chances improve significantly. Can I see him? He's unconscious. The trauma, I don't care. Can I see him? The doctor studied her face, saw something there that made her nod. 5 minutes. Don't touch anything connected to the machines. Kaelyn pushed through the door. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the most beautiful and terrifying sound she'd ever heard. She approached the bed slowly, her legs threatening to give out with each step. Up close, he looked worse. The bruising was extensive, dark purple spreading across his jaw and cheekbone. His breathing was shallow and labored. One of his hands was clenched into a fist, like even unconscious he was still fighting. She took his other hand carefully, mindful of the IV taped to his skin. You promised, she whispered, her voice breaking. You promised you'd come back. The machines beeped. His chest rose and fell, but he didn't wake. A nurse touched her shoulder gently. You need to step out now. We have to run more tests. Kaelyn nodded, but couldn't make herself let go of his hand. Not yet. Not when this might be the last time she touched him. I'm not leaving, she said quietly to Lucien's unconscious form. You hear me? I'm not leaving, so you don't get to either. You don't get to die and make me live with that. You fight, you survive, and then we figure out the rest together. She kissed his forehead, tasting salt and copper and hospital antiseptic, then forced herself to walk out of the room before she fell apart completely. In the hallway, she found 3 of Lucien's men standing guard. She recognized one of them from the estate. Carlo. Mid-40s, scar across his eyebrow. Always professional, always watching. What happened? She asked, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. Carlo exchanged glances with the other men. Meeting went sideways. They brought guns, we brought guns, lot of shooting. Boss took 3 rounds covering our exit. Who did this? The old network. The people who don't want the empire dismantled. They made their position clear. Which is? Lucien backs off or they burn everything he's built, including you. Kaelyn's jaw tightened. Where are they now? Gone. Scattered. But they'll regroup. This isn't over. No, Kaelyn said quietly. It's not. She pulled out her phone and called the one person who would know what to do next. Marcus answered on the second ring. His voice was rough from pain and medication, but alert. Tell me he's alive, Marcus said. Barely. 3 gunshot wounds, internal bleeding, skull fracture. Doctors say the next few hours are critical. Silence on the other end. Then, where are you? Northwestern. ICU. Stay there. Don't leave. Don't talk to anyone except Carlo and the security team. I'm making calls. Marcus, I know what you're thinking. Don't. You can't go after them alone. I'm not planning to. Then what are you planning? I'm planning to find out exactly who did this, and then I'm planning to make sure they understand what happens when they touch him. Kaelyn, you're in a hospital bed because of me. Lucien's dying because of me. Everyone who's gotten hurt in the last month has gotten hurt because these people think I'm a weakness they can exploit. So I'm done being weak. You're not weak. You're the strongest person I know, but going after these people without backup is suicide. Then get me backup. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You understand what you're asking for, what it means. Yes. Once you cross this line, there's no going back. You'll be part of this world, permanently. I crossed that line the moment I got in his car. I just didn't know it yet. Another pause, then, all right. But we do this smart, calculated, no heroics, no revenge fantasies, just cold, efficient problem solving. Agreed? Agreed. Give me 4 hours. I'll have a plan. The line went dead. Kaelyn sat in the waiting room, surrounded by fluorescent lights and the quiet desperation of other families waiting for news about their loved ones. Time moved strangely, fast and slow simultaneously. Every minute felt like an hour. Every hour felt like seconds. Around 6 a.m., the doctor emerged. Kaelyn was on her feet before the woman fully cleared the door. He's stabilized, the doctor said, and Kaelyn's legs nearly gave out from relief. The bleeding is under control. We've repaired the internal damage. He's not out of danger yet, but he's fighting. That's a good sign. Can I see him? Yes, but he's still unconscious. The trauma was severe. His body needs time to heal. Kaelyn didn't care. She just needed to see him breathing. Lucien looked marginally better. The color in his face was less gray. The monitors showed stronger vitals. But he was still motionless, still silent, still unreachable. She pulled a chair close to his bed and took his hand again. You're going to be okay, she said softly. The doctors fixed you up. You just need to wake up now. Open your eyes. Tell me I'm an idiot for being here. Tell me you told me so. Just wake up. Nothing. She stayed there for an hour, talking to him about nothing. About her classes. About the book she'd been reading. About the piano in his library that she'd tried to play and failed miserably at. Anything to fill the silence. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. Carlo has the details you need. Meet him in the parking garage. Level 3. Kaelyn looked at Lucien's face one more time, memorized the rise and fall of his chest. Then she stood, kissed his forehead again, and walked out. The parking garage was cold and echoing. Carlo waited by a black SUV, arms crossed, expression grim. Marcus says you want in, he said without preamble. I'm already in. There's in and there's in. What Marcus is proposing crosses a line. You sure you're ready for that? Tell me the plan first. Then I'll decide. Carlo studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right, the people who shot Lucien are part of a faction called the Syndicate. Old school operation. They've been around since before Lucien's father. They profit from the infrastructure he built. Money laundering, import-export networks, political connections. Lucien dismantling everything threatens their income stream. How many people are we talking about? Core leadership? 5. Soldiers and associates? Maybe 40. They're organized, but not military, more corporate than cartel. Where are they? That's the problem. They scattered after the shooting, but Marcus has a source who says they're planning to regroup in 72 hours. Warehouse District, South Side. They think they've won. Think Lucien's dead or dying and the rest of us will fall in line. They're wrong. Yeah, but taking them down requires more than just shooting our way in. We need leverage, something that makes them back off permanently. Like what? Like proof of their illegal operations tied directly to them, names, dates, financial records, the kind of evidence that puts them all in federal prison for 20 years. And how do we get that? Carlo smiled. It wasn't friendly. We break into their headquarters and take it. Kaelyn's heart was racing. When? Tonight, while they're still scattered, before they regroup. What do you need from me? You sure you want to know? Yes. Carlo pulled out a tablet showing her building schematics. Their main operation is hidden inside a logistics company downtown. Legitimate front, crooked back end. Security is tight but manageable. Problem is, the files we need are on a server in the main office, top floor, behind biometric locks and armed guards. So we fight our way in. No, we walk in. With you. Kaelyn blinked. What? They know Lucien cares about you, know you're his weakness. If you show up at their door claiming you want to make a deal, trade yourself for their backing off. They'll let you in. No shooting, no alarms. You walk right past security because you're exactly what they want. And then what? Then you keep them distracted while our tech guy hacks their system and downloads everything. 10 minutes. That's all we need. What if they figure it out before 10 minutes is up? Then things get messy, but Carlo and the team will be on site, hidden, ready to extract you the second we have the files. Kaelyn's mind was racing. It was insane, reckless, the kind of plan that only worked in movies, but it might actually work. I'm in, she said. You need to understand the risks, Carlo said seriously. These people killed 3 men last night and nearly killed Lucien. If they realize you're playing them, they won't hesitate to kill you too. You'll be alone in that room with them. No backup, no weapon, just your ability to sell the lie. I understand. And if something goes wrong, if we can't extract you in time, I understand, she repeated, firmer this time. Carlo nodded slowly. Marcus said you had spine. Glad he was right. We move at 8 tonight. That gives you 12 hours to prepare. Get some rest. Eat something. You'll need your energy. What should I expect when I walk in there? The leader is a man named Victor Cross, mid-60s, former attorney, smart, ruthless, treats violence like a business tool. He'll try to get in your head, make you doubt yourself. You need to stay focused. Remember why you're there. To buy Lucien time to survive. No. To end this permanently, so he doesn't have to spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder. Carlo handed her a small earpiece. Communication device. We'll hear everything you say. If things go sideways, say the word mercy. That's the extraction code. We come in guns blazing and get you out. Kaelyn pocketed the earpiece. Anything else? Yeah, don't be a hero. Your job is to distract them and stay alive. That's it. Let us handle the rest. She nodded. Carlo drove her back to Lucien's estate. The house felt empty without him. Haunted. She tried to sleep, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw him on that hospital bed, chest barely rising, machines the only thing keeping him alive. At noon, she gave up and went to his library, pulled the copy of Camus off the shelf and read his margin notes again. Questions about choice, purpose, whether any of it mattered. She added her own note in the margin. It matters. All of it. Especially the choice to fight for the people you love. At 6 p.m., she showered and dressed carefully. Black jeans, dark sweater, nothing flashy, nothing that would make her look like a threat. Just a scared woman trying to protect the man she loved, which wasn't far from the truth. Carlo picked her up at 7:30. The drive downtown was silent. They parked 3 blocks from the Target building. Carlo ran through the plan one more time. You walk in through the main entrance. Tell the receptionist you need to speak with Victor Cross urgently. Personal matter regarding Lucien Moretti. They'll take you up. Once you're in his office, keep him talking. Ask questions. Stall. The longer you keep his attention, the more time our guy has to work. And if he asks why I'm really there, tell him the truth. That you're trying to save Lucien's life, that you'll do whatever it takes. Men like Victor respect desperation. It makes sense to them. Kaelyn fitted the earpiece carefully, hidden beneath her hair, tested the connection. I can hear you, Carlo confirmed through the device. We're in position. You're good to go. She took a breath, then another. Her heart was hammering so hard she thought it might crack a rib. "You don't have to do this," Carlo said quietly. "We can find another way." "There is no other way. We both know that." He nodded. "Then go." "And Kaelyn, you're braver than most men I've served with. Lucien's lucky to have you." She got out of the SUV before she could lose her nerve. The logistics company building was all steel and glass, modern and sleek and completely unremarkable. The kind of place you'd walk past 1,000 times without noticing. Which was exactly the point. Kaelyn pushed through the front doors. The receptionist looked up from her computer, professional smile already in place. "Can I help you?" "I need to speak with Victor Cross. It's urgent." The smile faltered. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but tell him it's about Lucien Moretti. He'll want to see me." The receptionist's expression shifted, suspicion mixed with curiosity. She picked up the phone, spoke quietly, then hung up. "Mr. Cross will see you. Top floor." A security guard materialized to escort her to the elevator. He was armed, professional, watching her carefully for any signs of threat. The elevator ride was endless. Kaelyn focused on her breathing, in, out, steady, controlled. She couldn't afford to panic now. The top floor was luxury corporate, hardwood floors, expensive art, the kind of place that looked completely legitimate and probably was on paper. The security guard led her to a corner office with windows overlooking the city. Behind an enormous desk sat a man who matched Carlo's description. Victor Cross, silver hair, expensive suit, eyes like a predator evaluating prey. "Miss Mercer," he said, his voice smooth and cultured. "I wasn't expecting a visit. Please, sit." Kaelyn sat, forced herself to meet his eyes. "I want to make a deal," she said. Victor smiled. "I'm listening." "You want Lucien to stop dismantling the network. I want him to survive. Those interests align." "Do they?" "Because from where I'm sitting, the easiest way to stop him is to let him bleed out in that hospital bed." Kaelyn's fists clenched. "If he dies, you lose any leverage you had. The people loyal to him will scatter or retaliate. This becomes a war nobody wins. Or we consolidate power and rebuild without his interference. You think it'll be that simple? You think Marcus and the others will just roll over? You'll spend the next decade watching your back." Victor leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You make a compelling argument, but I'm curious why you're here instead of him." "Because he's unconscious, and someone needs to end this before more people die." "Noble. But what exactly are you offering?" "Me. I walk away. Leave Chicago, disappear. You leave Lucien alone to finish what he started. Clean exit for everyone." Victor laughed. Actually laughed. "You think you're worth that much to him?" "I think you shot him 3 times because you wanted to send a message. Because you knew hurting him wasn't enough. You needed to destroy what he cared about. Well, here I am. Take the deal. Let him live." "And what happens when he recovers? When he comes after us for what we did?" "He won't. Because I'll make him promise. No retaliation, no revenge, just a clean break." Victor stood, walking to the windows. "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." "Probably both." He turned back to her. "Let's say I believe you. Let's say I think you can actually control him. What's stopping me from just killing you both and being done with it? Nothing, except that creates the exact war you're trying to avoid. Or it eliminates the problem entirely." Kaelyn's pulse was racing. She could hear Carlo in her earpiece breathing steadily. The tech was working. She just needed to keep Victor talking. "You're smarter than that," she said. "You don't stay in power for decades by making emotional decisions. This is business. So let's do business. I give you what you want. You give me what I want. Simple transaction." Victor studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You're good," he said. "Almost convincing. But I've been doing this too long to fall for noble sacrifice plays." Kaelyn's blood went cold. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do. See, the interesting thing about your offer is that it's exactly what someone would propose if they were trying to distract me. Keep me talking while something else happens." He walked back to his desk and pressed a button. The door behind Kaelyn opened. 3 armed men entered. "So let's try this again," Victor said, his voice losing all warmth. "Why are you really here?" Kaelyn's mind raced. The plan was falling apart. She could say the extraction code. Carlo would come. but the files weren't downloaded yet. If she called for help now, this was all for nothing. "I told you why I'm here," she said steadily. "No, you told me a story, but stories aren't facts, and facts are what I deal in." He nodded to one of the guards. "Search her." Rough hands grabbed her, patted her down, found the earpiece within seconds. Victor took it, held it up to the light, then crushed it under his shoe. "Well," he said quietly, "that changes things." Kaelyn's heart was thundering, but she kept her voice steady. "You're making a mistake." "No, Miss Mercer, you made the mistake. Coming here, thinking you could outplay people who've been in this game since before you were born." He walked around the desk, stopping inches from her. "Now, you're going to tell me exactly what you and Lucien's remaining people are planning, and you're going to tell me right now, or things get very unpleasant very quickly." "I don't know anything." Victor sighed. "I was afraid you'd say that." He nodded to the guards. "Take her to the basement. We'll continue this conversation somewhere more private." They grabbed her arms. Kaelyn tried to fight, but they were trained, and she wasn't. They hauled her out of the office, down a back stairwell, into a part of the building that looked nothing like the polished corporate floors above. The basement was concrete and exposed pipes, and the smell of old blood that never quite washed away. They threw her into a chair, zip-tied her wrists. One of the guards stayed while the others left, probably to get whatever tools they thought would make her talk. Kaelyn's mind was racing. The extraction code was useless without the earpiece. Carlo didn't know where she was. The files might not be downloaded, and she was tied to a chair in a basement that probably doubled as a torture chamber. She'd royally screwed up. The guard's phone rang. He answered, spoke in clipped sentences, then hung up. "Boss wants me upstairs," he told her. "You stay put. We'll be back to chat soon." He left, locking the door behind him. Kaelyn immediately started working on the zip ties, twisting her wrists, looking for any slack. The plastic dug into her skin, drawing blood, but she kept working. She'd almost gotten one hand free when the door opened again. But it wasn't Victor or the guards. It was Marcus. He was pale and moving stiffly, clearly still injured, but he was there, with bolt cutters and a gun. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, cutting her free. "Can't leave you alone for 5 minutes. How did you—" "GPS tracker in your jacket. Old school backup plan. Come on, we need to move." "The files. Downloaded 3 minutes ago, mission accomplished. Now we extract before they realize how badly they got played." He led her through a maintenance corridor that smelled like mildew and motor oil. Behind them, alarms started blaring. Shouts echoed through the building. "They figured it out," Kaelyn said. "Yep, which means we run." They ran, through hallways, upstairs. Marcus was wheezing, his injuries clearly worse than he'd admitted, but he didn't slow down. They burst through an emergency exit into an alley where Carlo waited with the SUV running. "Go, go, go!" Marcus shouted, practically throwing Kaelyn into the back seat. Gunfire erupted behind them. The SUV's rear window spiderwebbed but didn't shatter. Bulletproof glass. Carlo floored it, tires screaming as they shot out of the alley. Kaelyn looked back. Victor's men were pouring out of the building, but they were already 3 blocks away. "Did we get everything?" she asked breathlessly. Marcus held up a flash drive. "Everything, financial records, communications, names, dates, enough to put the entire syndicate leadership away for life." "And Victor?" "Being arrested as we speak. Federal agents are hitting every location we identified simultaneously. By morning, the syndicate won't exist." Kaelyn slumped back in her seat, adrenaline draining away, leaving exhaustion in its wake. "Take me to the hospital," she said. "You need medical attention," Marcus said, gesturing at her bleeding wrists. "Hospital, now." Carlo glanced at Marcus, who nodded. They made it to Northwestern in 15 minutes. Kaelyn was out of the SUV before it fully stopped, running through the entrance, past security, into the elevator, up to the 4th floor. The ICU was quieter now. Night shift. Fewer people. She found his room, pushed through the door, and froze. Lucien's eyes were open. He looked terrible. Pale. Weak. But conscious. Alive. Real. "Hey," he said, his voice barely a rasp. Kaelyn's legs gave out. She collapsed into the chair by his bed, tears streaming down her face. "You're awake," she managed. Been awake for about 20 minutes. Doctor said you'd been here all day. His eyes focused on her wrists. Why are you bleeding? Long story. Kaelyn, we got them. Victor, the syndicate, all of them. It's over. Lucien stared at her. What did you do? What you would have done. I protected what mattered. You went after them. Yes. Alone. Not alone. Marcus and Carlo, you went after armed criminals hours after I got shot. You could have been killed. But I wasn't, and now you're safe. We're safe. That's what matters. Lucien's jaw tightened. He tried to sit up, grimaced, gave up. You're insane, he said. Probably, but so are you. So we still match. Despite everything, despite the pain and fear and exhaustion, Lucien almost smiled. Come here, he said quietly. Kaelyn carefully climbed onto the edge of the hospital bed, mindful of his injuries. He wrapped his good arm around her, pulling her close. Don't ever do that again, he murmured against her hair. Do what? Terrify me. Risk yourself. Make me realize how much I need you. Can't promise that. Why not? Because you do the same for me. Because this is what love looks like. Messy and terrifying and completely irrational. He was quiet for a moment. Then, say that again. Which part? The love part. Kaelyn pulled back just enough to look at him. His eyes were intense despite the exhaustion, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. I love you, she said clearly. Even though you're stubborn and self-destructive and have terrible taste in enemies. I love you. I love you too, he said. Even though you're reckless and don't follow orders and make me want to be better than I am. She kissed him, gently, carefully, mindful of his bruised face and broken body. When they broke apart, he said, we need to talk about what happens next. Later. Right now you need to rest. Kaelyn, rest. Heal. Then we figure out the rest together. That's the deal. He studied her face, then nodded. Together. Together. She stayed there, curled against him as carefully as possible, listening to his heartbeat and the steady beep of the monitors and knowing that they'd survived something most people didn't. Outside, dawn was breaking over Chicago. The city was waking up, moving on, unaware that somewhere in this hospital, two people had just decided to rebuild their lives from ashes and blood and impossible choices. But they'd do it together, and that made all the difference. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and second chances. Kaelyn sat in the chair beside Lucien's bed, watching his chest rise and fall with the steady rhythm of someone who'd cheated death and was still processing the bill. 3 days since the shooting. 3 days of surgeries and transfusions, and doctors using words like lucky and millimeters, and if the bullet had been 1 degree to the left. 3 days of Kaelyn refusing to leave except when nurses physically escorted her out for his procedures. She looked like hell, knew it, didn't care. Her hair was greasy, pulled back in a knot that had given up on structure 2 days ago. She wore the same jeans and Lucien's hoodie that Marcus had brought her because her own clothes had been evidence in a crime scene. Her eyes burned from exhaustion that coffee couldn't touch anymore. But Lucien was alive, breathing, real. That was the only thing that mattered. His eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the light. Found her immediately, like some part of him knew exactly where she'd be. You're still here, he said, voice rough from the breathing tube they'd removed yesterday. Where else would I be? Anywhere sane. Paris, maybe. That ticket's probably still good. Shut up about Paris. But she smiled, feeling tears threaten for the 100th time. How's the pain? Manageable. The drugs are excellent. He tried to sit up, grimaced, gave up. How long have I been out? 16 hours this time. They said your body needed rest. She poured water, held the straw to his lips. He drank gratefully. Marcus has been calling every 2 hours. Nolan's attorney wants to negotiate. The FBI has questions. Your building manager wants to know when you're coming back because apparently the penthouse plants are dying. The plants can die. Everything else can wait. His hand found hers on the bed. But you need to sleep. Actually sleep, in a bed. Not that torture device you've been using. She'd been sleeping in the recliner. When she slept, which was maybe 4 hours total across 3 days. I'm fine. You're a mess. A beautiful mess, but still a mess. His thumb traced circles on her palm. Go home, shower, sleep in our bed. Come back tomorrow. No. Kaelyn, I said no. I'm not leaving you alone in here. Her voice cracked. I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see you on that hospital bed when we brought you in. All that blood, the doctors' faces, the way Marcus looked at me like he was preparing me for the worst. She pressed his hand to her cheek. So no, I'm not going home. I'm staying right here until you're well enough to physically throw me out. Lucien's expression softened into something that looked like pain and love tangled together. I'm sorry. For what? For scaring you. For getting shot. For building a life where people try to kill me. His eyes held hers. For pulling you into all of it. You didn't pull me anywhere. I jumped, remember? She leaned closer. And I'd do it again every time, even knowing how it ends. How does it end? With you alive. With us figuring out what comes next. She kissed his forehead, careful of the bandages. Together. That was the deal. That was the deal, he agreed quietly. The door opened. Marcus entered carrying a tablet and looking like he'd aged 5 years in 3 days. His suit was wrinkled, a first in the 6 years Kaelyn had known him. His eyes were bloodshot. The calm, controlled Marcus she'd grown used to had cracked, showing the man underneath who'd almost lost someone he'd served for over a decade. You're awake, Marcus said. Good. We have problems. We always have problems, Lucien replied. Rank them by urgency. Nolan Pierce made bail again. Different judge, different attorney, same bullshit. He's out. Kaelyn's blood went cold. How? Money, connections, a legal system that bends for people who can afford the right lawyers. Marcus's jaw tightened. He's supposed to stay away from you, ankle monitor, daily check-ins, but we both know how effective that'll be. He violated it before, Kaelyn said. He'll do it again. Probably. Which is why I've tripled your security. Santos plus 2 others, 24/7, non-negotiable. Marcus looked at Lucien. Your orders still stand? What orders? Kaelyn asked. Lucien's expression went carefully neutral. If Nolan comes near you again, my people have instructions to neutralize the threat, permanently. The word hung in the air, permanently, which meant exactly what it sounded like. Lucien, I'm not arguing about this, not from a hospital bed, not after he's already tried to kill you twice. His voice went hard. He had photos of you sleeping, Kaelyn, taken through your window. He doxed you online. He filed false police reports to destroy your reputation. He violated every restraining order. At what point do we stop giving him chances to escalate? At the point where we become murderers. I'm already a murderer, multiple times over. Adding one more to the list doesn't change who I am. He met her eyes. But it might keep you alive. That's a trade I'll make every time. Marcus cleared his throat. There's more. The shooting investigation. Police want to interview you both, separately. They have questions about who you are, Mr. Moretti. What you do. Your business interests. Stall them. Medical reasons. I'm recovering from gunshot wounds. They can wait. They're not going to wait forever. And the FBI is interested now. Organized Crime Division. Of course they are. Lucien closed his eyes briefly. How bad? Manageable. For now. But you're on their radar in a way you weren't before. The shooting was public, witnesses, evidence. They're building a file. Then we build a better defense. Get Davidson on it, whatever it costs. Marcus nodded. Already done. He wants to meet as soon as you're discharged. When's that? Doctors say another week, maybe more if complications develop. Lucien's hand tightened on Kaelyn's. A week. We can work with that. Marcus left to make calls. Kaelyn sat in the silence that followed, processing. The FBI. Organized crime. A future where Lucien's world was no longer hidden in shadows, but exposed under federal investigation. This is because of me, she said quietly. Because you protected me. Because Nolan... No. This is because I've been playing a dangerous game for years and eventually the bill comes due. He looked at her. But I don't regret it, any of it. Not protecting you, not the shooting, not the consequences. You might, when the FBI tears apart your life. They've been trying to tear apart my life since I was 18. I'm still here. He pulled her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. And I'll still be here after they're done investigating. We just have to be smart, careful. Let the lawyers handle the legal parts while we handle survival. Is that what we're doing? Surviving? For now, until we're strong enough to do more than survive. His eyes burned despite the exhaustion. I promise you, Kaelyn, we're going to come through this. Different, maybe. Changed, but together. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that love and lawyers and enough money could protect them from everything converging. But sitting in that hospital room, watching the man she loved recover from bullets that had been meant to kill him, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing at the edge of something they couldn't control. And the fall was going to hurt. 4 days later, Lucien was discharged with instructions to rest, avoid stress, and come back immediately if he developed fever or bleeding, or any of the dozen complications that could still kill him. He ignored approximately all of it. By day 6, he was working from the penthouse, laptop propped on his chest, phone constantly buzzing with calls from attorneys and associates and people who needed decisions only he could make. Kaelyn wanted to strangle him, wanted to throw his phone out the window and force him to actually rest. Instead, she brought him food he barely ate and medication he took grudgingly, and sat beside him while he rebuilt his empire from a bed in their living room. "You're going to rip your stitches," she said, watching him gesture emphatically during a video call. He muted the call. "I'm fine. You were shot 3 times a week ago. You're not fine. You're upright out of pure stubbornness. That's how I've stayed alive this long." But he ended the call, set the laptop aside. "Come here." She climbed onto the bed carefully, mindful of his injuries. He pulled her against his good side, and she fit there like they'd been designed for exactly this configuration. "I'm scared," she admitted, "of what comes next, of the FBI, of Nolan, of losing you to something I can't fight." "I know. I'm scared too." The admission surprised her. "You don't seem scared. You seem controlled, like you're 10 steps ahead of everyone else. That survival instinct doesn't mean I'm not terrified underneath." His fingers tangled in her hair. "But I've learned that fear is just information. It tells you what matters, what's worth protecting. And you—" He tilted her face up to meet his eyes. "You're the thing I'm most afraid of losing, which means you're also the thing worth fighting hardest for. That's the most romantic and terrifying thing you've ever said to me. I contain multitudes." She kissed him, careful and soft. He responded with the controlled intensity of someone who wanted more but knew his body couldn't handle it yet. "When you're healed," she murmured against his lips, "I'm going to show you exactly how much I missed this. Promises, promises." Her phone buzzed. "Simone." The text was brief. "Need to talk. Important. Can I come over?" Kaelyn showed Lucien. He nodded. "Santos will clear her." 20 minutes later, Simone sat in the penthouse looking uncomfortable and worried and like she'd been practicing what to say. She accepted coffee she didn't drink and made small talk that died quickly. "Just say it," Kaelyn finally said. "Whatever you came to say." Simone exhaled. "Michael contacted me, your ex. He wanted me to pass a message." The name landed like a grenade. "What message?" "That he's worried about you, that he's been following the news about the shooting and Nolan's arrest, that he wants to help." "Help how?" "He didn't specify. Just said if you needed anything, money, a place to stay, legal assistance, to call him." Simone looked between Kaelyn and Lucien. "I told him to fuck off, but I thought you should know." Kaelyn felt Lucien tense beside her. "When did he contact you?" 2 days ago. I ignored him at first, but he kept calling." Simone's expression hardened. "Look, I know Michael's your ex and I'm supposed to be neutral or whatever, but fuck that. The guy who made you feel invisible for 4 years doesn't get to suddenly play concerned hero when your life gets dangerous." "Agreed," Lucien said quietly. "I'm not calling him," Kaelyn said. "I don't need his help. Don't want it. He can go back to whatever life he's building without me." "Good." Because honestly, there was something weird about how insistent he was. Like he had an agenda beyond just checking on you. Simone finally sipped her coffee. "I don't trust him. Never did, even when you were married." "You never said that." "You were married to him. Wasn't my place." She set down the cup. "But now you're not. So I'm saying it. Michael Vale is a manipulative asshole who made you small so he could feel big. Don't let him back in, not even a crack. Men like that, they take any opening and turn it into a door. Lucien's hand found Kaelyn's. She's right. After Simone left, Kaelyn stood at the windows looking out at Chicago's skyline. Gray day, rain threatening, the kind of weather that matched her mood.
Do you think he's dangerous? She asked.
Michael? I think anyone from your past who suddenly appears when you're vulnerable is worth watching. Lucien had moved to stand behind her, his reflection visible in the glass. Want me to have him checked out? Checked out how? Background, financials, who he's talking to, what he's been doing since the divorce. His voice stayed neutral. Just information. What you do with it is your choice. She should have said no, should have let Michael fade into irrelevance where he belonged. But something about Simone's words nagged at her, something weird about how insistent he was. Okay, she said. Check him out, but discreetly. I only work discreetly. 2 days later, Marcus arrived with a file folder and an expression that meant the news wasn't good. Michael Vale, he said, spreading documents across the coffee table. Your ex-husband, currently unemployed, fired from Garrison Financial 3 months ago for embezzling client funds. Under investigation but not charged yet. He's cooperating with prosecutors. Kaelyn's stomach dropped. Michael embezzled? $200,000 over 18 months. Covered his tracks pretty well until an audit caught discrepancies. Marcus pulled out another document. He's also got gambling debts. $30,000 to a bookie with connections to some very unpleasant people, debts he can't pay. Jesus Christ. There's more. In the last month, Michael's been researching Lucien. Deep dives into his business holdings, property assets, legal history, hours of internet searches. Almost obsessive. Lucien's expression went cold. Why? Best guess, he's looking for leverage, something he can sell or trade. Marcus met Kaelyn's eyes. I think he's planning to approach you. Use your relationship, past or present, to get close. Extract information. Either sell it to Lucien's competitors or use it to negotiate down his own legal problems. The betrayal felt distant, like it was happening to someone else. Kaelyn had loved this man once, married him, built a life that had slowly suffocated her, and now he was researching her current partner like a mark to exploit. He wanted me to call him, she said slowly, offered help, money, legal assistance. He wanted an opening, a reason to talk, build trust. Marcus's voice stayed clinical. Men drowning in debt get creative, desperate, dangerous. What do we do? Kaelyn asked. Lucien was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was ice. We cut him off completely. No contact, no responses. Santos adds him to the watch list. If he approaches Kaelyn, we handle it. Handle it how? However we need to. His eyes held hers. I know he's your ex, part of your past, but he's also a threat now. And I don't let threats get close to you, not anymore. He's not Nolan. He's not violent. He's desperate. That's worse. Nolan was predictable, obsessed, escalating, easy to track. Desperate men are unpredictable. They make choices that don't follow logic because they're drowning. Lucien's hand tightened into a fist. I've seen it before. Usually ends badly. Marcus gathered the documents. I'll have someone keep tabs on him. If he makes a move toward Kaelyn, or tries to dig deeper into your business, we'll know. After Marcus left, Kaelyn sat in silence, trying to process. 2 men from her past, one an obsessive stalker, one a desperate con man, both circling like sharks around the life she'd built. I'm sorry, Lucien said quietly. For what? That your past won't stay in the past. That people you once cared about have turned into problems we have to solve. He moved to sit beside her, moving carefully around his healing wounds. You deserve better than this. I deserve you. Everything else is just noise. She leaned into him. But I need to ask something. Anything. If Michael approaches me, tries to talk, tries to manipulate me. She looked up at him. What will you do? His expression went carefully blank. What do you want me to do? I want you to let me handle it. Let me be the one to shut him down, to draw that line. Her voice steadied. I need to do it. Not Santos. Not you. Me. And if he won't listen, then you can handle it however you need to. but give me the first chance. I need to prove. She stopped, started again. I need to prove to myself that I can face him without falling apart, that I'm not the woman he married who let him make her small. Lucien studied her face. Okay, you get first shot, but Santos stays close, and if things go wrong, I know. You'll burn down the world to keep me safe. She kissed him. That's why I love you. One of many reasons, I hope. One of many. 3 weeks passed. Lucien healed slowly, regaining strength and mobility with the frustrated impatience of someone who hated being weak. Physical therapy became his new obsession, pushing his body past what doctors recommended because staying still felt like dying. Kaelyn returned to her classes at Northwestern, Santos shadowing her like a well-dressed ghost. Started submitting law school applications because the future she'd been building before Lucien hadn't disappeared, just evolved. She could still be a lawyer, still build a career, just with armed security and a boyfriend whose enemies occasionally tried to kill her. Normal adjusted to accommodate reality. Nolan stayed away, tracked on his ankle monitor, following court orders, maybe genuinely scared after witnessing what Lucien could do when pushed, or maybe just biding time. They didn't know. Stayed vigilant anyway. Then, on a Tuesday that started ordinary, Michael made his move. Kaelyn was leaving class when she saw him waiting by the library, no longer looking small or worn down, looking put together, desperate confidence, the expression of a man playing his last card. Santos tensed, reached for his phone. "Wait," Kaelyn said. "I'll handle this." "Ms. Mercer, stay close, but let me talk to him." She handed Santos her bag. "Just talk." She walked over. Michael's face lit up with relief that looked practiced. "Kaelyn, thank God. I wasn't sure you'd—" "What do you want, Michael?" The directness caught him off guard. "I've been trying to reach you, wanted to apologize for everything, the marriage, how it ended, how I treated you." "Simone said you already apologized, through her." Message received. "I needed to say it in person." He stepped closer. Santos moved fractionally forward. Michael noticed, stepped back. "Can we talk? Get coffee? Just 10 minutes. We're talking now. Somewhere private, please. There are things I need to tell you about your new boyfriend." He said the word like it tasted bad. "Things you should know before you get in too deep." And there it was. The angle. The manipulation. "I know everything I need to know about Lucien." "Do you? Do you know what he does? The people he's hurt? The criminal organization he runs?" Michael's voice dropped. "I've done research, Sarah. Real research. The man is dangerous, connected to things that will destroy you if you stay." "You mean the things you were hoping to sell to his competitors? The information you've been gathering to trade for your own legal problems?" His face went white. "I don't know what—" "Yes, you do. I know about the embezzling, Michael. The gambling debts, the investigation. I know you're desperate and drowning and looking for any lifeline." She kept her voice steady. "And I know you thought I'd be that lifeline. Naive Kaelyn, who you could manipulate into giving you information or money or access to Lucien's world. That's not—" "Don't lie. You're bad at it. You were bad at it when we were married, too. I just didn't want to see it." She stepped closer. Santos shadowed her movement. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk away. Stop researching Lucien. Stop trying to contact me. Stop whatever scheme you're planning that involves using me to save yourself." "Sarah, and if you don't, if you keep pushing, I'll let Lucien handle you. And trust me when I say you don't want that. He's already dealing with one stalker who won't take no for an answer. He won't hesitate to make you problem number 2 that gets permanently solved." Michael's jaw worked. Anger and fear fighting for dominance. "You've changed. You're not the woman I married." "No, I'm not. That woman disappeared around year 2 of our marriage when you stopped seeing her." Kaelyn felt something settle in her chest. Final. Complete. "That woman is dead, Michael. And the person standing here? She doesn't need you, doesn't want you, doesn't care what happens to you, so walk away while you still can." "I loved you." "No. You loved having someone who made you feel important. There's a difference." She turned to go, stopped, looked back. "Get help, Michael, for the gambling, the debt, the desperation. Get actual help. Because this path you're on, It ends badly, and I won't be there to pick up the pieces when you crash." She walked away. Santos fell into step beside her. Behind them, Michael called her name once. Desperate, lost. She didn't look back. In the car, Santos said quietly, "That was well handled, Ms. Mercer." "Thank you." "Should I inform Mr. Moretti?" "Yeah, tell him it's resolved. Michael won't be a problem anymore." She was right. Michael Vale disappeared from their lives like smoke. Later, Kaelyn would learn he'd taken a plea deal on the embezzlement charges, lost his license to practice finance, and moved to Colorado to start over in a job that didn't involve other people's money. She felt nothing about it except relief that he was gone. One problem down, one still circling. The FBI investigation intensified. Agents showed up at the penthouse with questions and search warrants and the polite aggression of people who knew they were hunting something but couldn't quite prove it. Lucien's attorneys handled most of it, citing medical recovery and constitutional rights and the usual legal barriers that slowed federal investigations. But the pressure was constant, exhausting, a reminder that Lucien's world was collapsing inward, secrets being excavated, shadows exposed to daylight. "They're building a RICO case," Davidson explained during a meeting at the penthouse. "Racketeering. They think they can tie you to Nolan's stalking through conspiracy theories about orchestrating it for unclear reasons. It's weak, but they're fishing." "How weak?" Lucien asked. "Weak enough that I'm not worried, but strong enough that we need to be careful. No mistakes. Everything by the book." Davidson's eyes flicked to Kaelyn. "That includes personal relationships. Miss Mercer needs to be beyond reproach. No legal issues. No connections to questionable people. Nothing they can use to build a pattern of corruption or criminal association." "Kaelyn's not involved in my business," Lucien said. "I know, but perception matters in federal cases. They'll paint whatever picture serves their narrative." Davidson closed his briefcase. "I'm not saying end the relationship. I'm saying be smart. Don't give them ammunition." After he left, Kaelyn felt something heavy settle in her chest. "He's right." "About what?" "About me being a liability. About my presence making things harder for you." She looked at Lucien. "Maybe I should—" "Don't! Don't even finish that sentence." He crossed to her, cupped her face in his hands. "You're not a liability. You're the reason I'm still fighting, the reason I'm trying to be better than what I was. But if being with me makes the legal problems worse, then we deal with it, together." His eyes burned. "I'm not losing you because federal agents are fishing for a case that doesn't exist. I'm not giving up the best thing in my life because it's inconvenient or complicated or makes lawyers nervous." "Lucien!" "No. Listen to me. I've spent 15 years building an empire, making money, consolidating power, being the person everyone feared or respected or wanted to destroy." His voice went quiet. "But none of it meant anything until you. You're the first thing I've ever built that's actually worth protecting. So if the FBI wants to investigate, let them. If they want to indict me, they can try. But they're not taking you from me, not without the fight of their lives." Tears blurred her vision. "You're insane." "Probably, but I'm your kind of insane." He kissed her, soft and certain. "We're going to survive this. All of it. Nolan, the FBI, whatever else comes, because we're stronger together than anything trying to break us apart." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. The final confrontation came 6 weeks after the shooting, on a night when winter had finally claimed Chicago with the kind of cold that cut through clothing and skin straight to bone. Kaelyn was home alone. Lucien at a meeting with attorneys, Santos outside in the hallway, 2 other security personnel in the lobby. Safe, protected, everything by protocol. Until the power went out. Not just the penthouse, the entire building. Backup generators failed. Emergency lights didn't engage. Just darkness and the sound of her own heartbeat, suddenly too loud. "Santos?" she called out. No response. She grabbed her phone. No signal. Pulled the black phone Lucien had given her. Dead. Someone had jammed communications. The door clicked, unlocked from outside, opened slowly. A figure stepped through. Backlit by distant city lights, she couldn't make out features. But she knew. Nolan. "Surprise," he said quietly. Kaelyn's blood turned to ice. "How did you—" Get past security? Money. Lots of it. Turns out everyone has a price, including the men Lucien hired to protect you. He moved further into the penthouse, and she caught glimpses of his face. Calm. Too calm. The expression of someone who'd crossed a line so far behind him he couldn't see it anymore. You look good, Kaelyn. Better than when we met. Guess being with a murderer suits you. Get out. Or what? You'll call for help? He held up a device. Cell jammer. Very illegal. Very effective. No one's coming. No one even knows I'm here. We have time to talk, to settle things. There's nothing to settle. You're stalking me. You're violating court orders. You're going back to jail. Maybe. Eventually. But first, he pulled out a knife. Not threatening, just present. A fact. First, you're going to tell me why. Why him? Why a criminal? Why not me? Because you're unstable, violent, obsessed. She backed toward the kitchen, mind racing through possibilities. Weapons, exits, ways to survive. Because Lucien sees me as a person. You see me as property. I see you as mine. There's a difference. No, there isn't. She grabbed a kitchen knife from the block. Leave now, while you still can. Nolan laughed. You think that scares me? You think you... The door crashed open. Not Santos. Lucien. He moved like death itself. Fast, controlled, absolutely lethal. Crossed the space between door and Nolan in 3 strides, caught Nolan's knife hand, twisted until bones snapped. Nolan screamed. The knife clattered to the floor. Lucien drove him against the wall hard enough to crack plaster. You came to my home, threatened her. In my home. Lucien, don't... Kaelyn started. Kaelyn, I'm not going to kill him, though I want to. God, I want to. Lucien's voice was ice and fury barely contained. But you asked me to be better, to not be the monster, so I won't kill him. He drove his fist into Nolan's stomach. Once. Twice. Nolan folded, gasping. But I'm going to make sure he understands what happens when you threaten what's mine. Please, Nolan choked. You had chances, multiple chances. Restraining orders, arrests, warnings. Lucien grabbed Nolan by the throat, lifted him slightly off the ground. But you kept coming, kept escalating, because you thought there'd be no consequences, that the system would protect you, that I'd play by rules. He threw Nolan to the floor. Nolan crawled backward, blood leaking from somewhere. Here's what happens now. You're going to prison, real prison, federal charges for assault, breaking and entering, stalking, violating protective orders. I've got evidence. Footage, testimony. Lucien crouched beside him. And while you're in prison, you're going to remember this moment. Remember what happened when you came after her. And you're going to spend every day being grateful I let you live. Santos appeared in the doorway with 2 other security personnel. Sir, police are on their way. Good. Get him out of my sight before I change my mind about not killing him. They dragged Nolan away. His screams echoed down the hallway until they faded into distance. Lucien turned to Kaelyn. His hands were shaking, rage or adrenaline or both. I'm sorry, he said. I tried to get here faster. When the alarms tripped and communications went down, His voice broke. I thought I'd be too late. She crossed to him, wrapped her arms around him, felt him shake with everything he'd been holding back. You weren't, she said. You were exactly on time. They stood there in the ruined penthouse, holding each other while police arrived and crime scene techs documented and lawyers started their work. The war was over. Nolan would go to prison for a very long time. Davidson made sure of it, piling charges until the prosecution had no choice but to push for maximum sentencing. 14 years. That's what Nolan Pierce got. 14 years for stalking, assault, breaking and entering, and about a dozen other charges that Davidson built into a case so airtight not even Nolan's federal judge father could crack it. The FBI investigation stalled. Without Nolan to interview, without evidence connecting Lucien to any actual crimes beyond defending his girlfriend from a stalker, the RICO case collapsed. The agents moved on to easier targets. Lucien remained free, powerful, and increasingly legitimate as he continued dismantling the violent parts of his empire. Michael Vale never contacted them again. Life moved forward. 4 months after Nolan's sentencing, Kaelyn received her law school acceptance from Northwestern. Full scholarship. The acceptance letter mentioned her remarkable resilience and demonstrated commitment to justice. She cried reading it, overwhelmed by the realization that she'd actually done it, survived everything, and still claimed her future. Lucien took her to dinner at the restaurant where they'd first met. Different circumstances this time. No fear, no stalkers, just two people who'd fought their way through hell and come out holding each other. "I'm proud of you," he said over wine that cost more than her first car. "I didn't do it alone." "No, but you did the hard parts. You're the one who never gave up, who kept fighting even when everything was falling apart." He reached across the table, took her hand. "You're the strongest person I know." "That's a low bar considering your world." "It's really not." He smiled. "Most people in my world break. They compromise. They become something they didn't start as. But you held on to who you are. You didn't let the violence and danger and fear turn you into someone else." "I feel like someone else sometimes." "Better or worse?" She considered. "Different. Harder. More sure of myself. Less afraid of taking up space." "Good. The world needs more of you taking up space." They finished dinner, walked through downtown Chicago as spring tried to reclaim the city from winter's grip. Everything felt possible again, new, like they'd survived the worst and earned the right to build something lasting. Back at the penthouse, they'd moved to a new one after Nolan's break-in, needing fresh space without violence attached. Lucien pulled out a small box. Kaelyn's heart stopped. "What's that?" "A question. Or an answer. Depends on how you look at it." He opened the box. Inside a ring, simple, beautiful. Exactly what she would have chosen if he'd asked. He didn't kneel, didn't make a speech, just held out the ring and said, "I want to keep doing this, building a life with you, surviving whatever comes next together. Legal wedding, permanent commitment, all of it." "That's the worst proposal I've ever heard." "It's the only proposal you've ever heard from me. So technically, the best and worst." She laughed despite tears threatening. "You're supposed to say something romantic. I love you. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You make me want to be someone worth your time. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving I can be that person." He paused. "Better?" "Much better, yes." "Yes?" "Yes, I'll marry you. I'll keep doing this. I'll build a life with you." She let him slide the ring onto her finger. "But I'm keeping my name, and we're having a small wedding, and you're promising right now that you'll never—" He kissed her before she could finish. Deep, certain. The kind of kiss that promised everything without words. When they broke apart, he said, "Whatever you want, small wedding, your name, whatever else you need, as long as you say yes." "I already said yes." "Say it again." "Yes." They were married 3 months later in a small ceremony at Northwestern's campus chapel. Secular service, 30 guests, vows they wrote themselves that were honest and imperfect and real. Simone was maid of honor. Marcus stood as Lucien's best man. Santos cried during the ceremony, which no one mentioned but everyone noticed. Kaelyn wore white because she wanted to, not because tradition demanded it. Lucien wore a suit that made him look dangerous and elegant and completely hers. They honeymooned in Italy, far from Chicago, and violence and everything that had tried to destroy them. Ate food that tasted like memory. Visited cities where no one knew them or cared about their complicated history. Existed as just Kaelyn and Lucien, two people in love, figuring out married life one day at a time. When they returned, law school consumed Kaelyn's focus. 18-hour days. Mountains of reading. The exhausting rigor of learning to think like a lawyer. But she loved it, thrived in it. Found her voice in case analysis and legal arguments and the pursuit of justice she'd been denied for so long. Lucien's empire continued its transformation. Less violence. More legitimate business. He still had enemies. You didn't spend years in that world and emerge without scars, but they were manageable, contained. The worst threats had been neutralized, and what remained was the slow work of building something that could last. They bought a house. Nothing as grand as the penthouse, but more livable. More them. A brownstone in Lincoln Park with a garden and rooms they could fill with life and maybe, eventually, family. Some nights they stayed up late talking about the future, what it might look like. Children, maybe, Though both admitted terror at the prospect of bringing kids into a world where their father had a violent past and their mother had been stalked. But also hope, the belief that they could build something better, something safe. Other nights they didn't talk at all, just existed together, watching movies, cooking dinner, the boring, beautiful routine of married life that both had once thought impossible. 2 years after they married, Kaelyn graduated law school, top of her class. Multiple job offers from prestigious firms. She chose a small practice focused on domestic violence advocacy and victims' rights, the work that mattered, even if it didn't pay as well as corporate law. Lucien supported her completely, donated to her organization, used his contacts to help clients who needed more than legal aid, became, slowly and imperfectly, the kind of partner she'd always needed. Marcus was still around, running Lucien's increasingly legitimate operations. Santos had become something like family, still providing security but also joining them for dinners and holidays and the celebrations that marked their lives.
Nolan was still in prison. Would be for another 10 years at least. Sometimes Kaelyn thought about him, wondered if he'd changed, if he understood what he'd done, if rehabilitation was actually possible for obsession that deep. Mostly, she didn't think about him at all. Michael had moved to Colorado, got sober, found work managing a bookstore, sent a card once, congratulating her on law school graduation. She'd read it, felt nothing, filed it away with other correspondence that didn't matter. The past stayed in the past, where it belonged. 3 years into their marriage, on a Thursday that started ordinary, Kaelyn came home to find Lucien sitting in their living room with a letter. "What's wrong?" she asked, reading tension in his shoulders. "Elena's daughter contacted me. My sister's daughter." He looked up. "She's 18. Wants to meet. Says Elena talked about me before she died. That she'd want us to know each other." The name landed like a stone. Elena. The sister he'd lost. The ghost that haunted him. "What did you say?" "I haven't responded yet. I wanted—" He stopped. Started again. "I wanted to ask what you think. If it's a good idea. If I'm ready." Kaelyn sat beside him, took his hand. "Are you?" "I don't know. Elena died because I wasn't there. Because I let her down. How do I face her daughter knowing that? By being honest. By showing up. By being the person Elena wanted you to be." She squeezed his hand. "You're not the same man who lost her. You've changed, become better. Maybe meeting her daughter is how you finish that change." He was quiet for a long time. Then he pulled out his phone and typed a response. Short, simple. An invitation to meet for coffee. Neutral territory. No pressure. 2 weeks later, they sat in a coffee shop downtown across from a young woman with Elena's eyes and dark hair and a cautious smile. Her name was Sophia. She was pre-med at University of Chicago. She'd grown up with Elena's stories about her brother who'd tried to protect her, who'd lived in a dangerous world but had a good heart underneath. "She loved you," Sophia said quietly. "Even at the end, she wanted me to find you someday, to tell you it wasn't your fault." Lucien's control cracked, just slightly, just enough for tears to threaten. "It was my fault. I should have been there faster." She sent that second text, the one that said, "Never mind." He forced her to send it. Sophia's jaw tightened. "She left me letters, told me the whole story. What happened, how you tried, how the man who killed her manipulated everything to make you think she was okay. I should have known, should have trusted my instinct. You were 90 minutes away and racing toward her as fast as you could. You did everything right. He just—" Her voice broke. "He stole the time you needed." They sat in that coffee shop for 3 hours, talking about Elena, about the years since, about Sophia's dreams of becoming a doctor, specifically working in domestic violence intervention because of what happened to her mother. When they finally parted, Sophia hugged Lucien and whispered, "She'd be proud of you, of who you've become. I'm proud to know you." That night, in their brownstone, Lucien cried for the first time since Kaelyn had known him. Real tears. Grief finally processed. She held him and let him break and put himself back together with the knowledge that Elena's daughter didn't hate him, didn't blame him, saw him as the uncle she'd never had and wanted in her life. Healing wasn't linear, but it was possible. 5 years after that wrong number text changed everything,
Kaelyn stood in their garden holding a daughter who had Lucien's dark eyes and her own stubborn chin. Isabella, 6 months old, perfect and terrifying, and proof that they'd actually done it, built a family from chaos and violence and love that refused to die. Lucien sat on the porch steps, watching them both with an expression that still made her breath catch. Love and terror and wonder all tangled together. "She's going to hate us someday," Kaelyn said, walking over, "when she learns about how we met, about your past, about everything. Probably, but we'll deal with it when it happens." He took Isabella, held her with the careful confidence of someone who'd spent months learning how to be a father. "For now, she's perfect, and we're doing our best." "Is our best good enough?" "I don't know, but it's all we've got." He looked up at her. "Besides, we survived everything else. Stalkers, federal investigations, my criminal empire, your ex-husband. If we can survive all that, we can probably survive parenthood." "That's terrible logic." "It's the only logic I have." Kaelyn sat beside them, watching their daughter grab at Lucien's finger with tiny hands that didn't know about violence or danger or the complicated history that had brought them all together. Just knew love, safety, family. The garden was full of spring growth, flowers blooming, trees budding, life returning after winter. Everything felt possible again. New, like they'd earned the right to build something lasting. Inside the house, the black phone Lucien had given her 5 years ago sat in a drawer. She'd never deleted his number, never thrown it away. It was a relic now, a reminder of how one wrong digit had changed absolutely everything. But looking at her husband and daughter in the garden they'd planted together, in the life they'd built from violence and fear and stubborn refusal to give up, she knew it had never been the wrong number at all. It had been exactly right. The universe had seen two broken people who needed each other and thrown them together with the subtlety of a bomb and the precision of fate. And somehow, impossibly, they'd survived. More than survived. They'd built something worth surviving for.